Chapter 1638, The Imminent Truth. Chapter 1638, The Imminent Truth. Steward Moo, Sapphiro narrowed her eyes. Do you remember what I hate most? Of course Steward Moo knew the answer. Sapphiro hated it the most when people lied to her. But he wasn't lying. This rascal who was impersonating him was the liar here. But without any evidence, he didn't know what to say. Steward Moo. Sapphiro's face darkened. Steward Moo stared at Sapphiro with a grim look on his face. Your Highness, will you believe me if I tell you that this cat-9 is a fake one? Crossing her arms, Sapphiro snorted. Steward Moo ground his teeth. Your Highness, will you believe me if I tell you that I didn't take his needle? Sapphiro snorted again. Your Highness. Steward Moo was shaking from head to toe. But he fought back his anger and took a deep breath. Your Highness, do you not trust me anymore? Sapphiro shook her head calmly. It's not that I don't trust you, but I need confirmation. To make it fair, both of you will be frisked. Steward Moo's face twitched. He didn't anticipate that the princess had so little trust in him. If the needle was really found on him while he was searched, that would be. With shaking fingers, Steward Moo took out a brocade box from his chest pocket and handed it to Sapphiro. Your Highness, this is. Sapphiro took it and saw that it was indeed the yin-yang needle. Steward Moo. Sapphiro's eyes widened and her face turned livid. You really did take the needle from cat-9. You're abusing your power. Steward Moo closed his eyes, his face almost green. How was he supposed to explain this? How could he possibly say it? Feng Wu heaved a sigh at that moment and told Sapphiro. Your Highness, please don't be mad. I think Steward Moo really was trying to study the needle. Sapphiro cast a stern look at Feng Wu. With everything that has happened, you're still taking his side? How kind of you. Fine. It's not like that's the most important thing right now. You already have the yin-yang needle. Do you know what to do? What should I do? Feng Wu looked very innocent. Sapphiro stared at Feng Wu in bewilderment. Are you a fool? Do you not know that the yin-yang needle is very useful for controlling beasts? Feng Wu said sure. But in fact, she hadn't known that before. Sapphiro said, so we can work with that. Isn't Feng Wu proud because of her advanced cultivation and her great patrons? I can't touch her when she's walking around. But what if her horse startles when she's riding? What if she falls and breaks her leg? And what if she doesn't just break a leg? What if she dies? Feng Wu didn't know what to say. The more she spoke, the more excited Sapphiro became. Since the needle can control beasts and horses are beasts, we can work with that. Feng Wu didn't know what to say. Clenching her fists, Sapphiro looked excited. I'm sure nothing will go wrong with you in control of the needle. So, the only problem now is how to make Feng Wu agree to a competition with me. Sapphiro walked around as she pondered. That girl will never agree if I just go up to her. So I need to have a plan. But what plan? HM. Chapter 1639, Feng Wu's Trick. Chapter 1639, Feng Wu's Trick. Princess, perhaps we can threaten Feng Wu with news about Duan Chaoga. Feng Wu said ambiguously. She was trying to find out to what extent Sapphiro was involved in Chaoga's kidnapping and how much she knew. Sapphiro frowned. Does that Duan Chaoga have such a big influence on Feng Wu? Steward Moo nodded repeatedly. Yes. Duan Chaoga is very important to Feng Wu. Sapphiro threw a dirty look at Steward Moo. And you know this how? Steward Moo was speechless. Feng Wu snickered inwardly, but she still put on a very serious face. As far as I know, Duan Chaoga is both important and unimportant to Feng Wu. How so? Sapphiro stared at Feng Wu. Feng Wu said quietly. People all think that Duan Chaoga and Feng Wu are very close. But after careful observation, I see that as close as they are, they're not as tight as everyone believes. But Feng Wu will definitely save Duan Chaoga, because if she doesn't, she'll be seen as a disloyal friend, which will ruin her reputation. Do you think I can use Duan Chaoga's life to threaten Feng Wu into competing with me on horseback? Sapphiro was uncertain. Feng Wu gave Sapphiro a mysterious smile. I think it'll work. Good. Sapphiro patted cat-9 on the shoulder. I'll leave it to you then. Feng Wu looked perplexed. Sapphiro stared at cat-9. Can't you do it? Feng Wu said. Of course I can, of course. Feng Wu found it very interesting that she was being asked to convince herself. However, Feng Wu studied the poison on the needle just then and realized in amazement that it was much more potent than she had expected and couldn't be neutralized easily. So, Your Highness, she called after Sapphiro, who was about to leave. Sapphiro turned around and looked at Feng Wu in bewilderment. Feng Wu smiled wryly. If Feng Wu gets her hands on the antidote for the needle, we'll be in trouble. Sapphiro stared at Feng Wu. How can she get it? Don't you have the antidote? Just then, Steward Mu's stomach lurched, and he had a very bad feeling. As expected, Feng Wu grinned at him before she sighed. Steward Mu. Sapphiro gave Steward Mu a suspicious glance. Having been defeated repeatedly by Feng Wu, Steward Mu was already very frustrated. He was now watching her with an indescribable look in his eyes. Feng Wu smiled bitterly. Steward Mu, didn't you take the antidote with you when you took the needle from me? He who had a mind to beat his dog would easily find a stick, and Feng Wu was making very good use of that stick now. Poor Steward Mu was completely shocked. What? What are you talking about? What do you mean by that? Steward Mu wanted to kill this little rascal. He had never been so miserable in his life. He was the one in the right, but had been forced to give in again and again until there was no more ground for him to lose. Feng Wu had been perfectly polite the entire time and kept smiling at Steward Mu. Sapphiro grew impatient. Steward Mu, be quick about it. Steward Mu stared at Sapphiro in disbelief, and he spoke in a trembling voice. Your Highness, even you. Chapter 1640. Chapter 1640, Untitled. Steward Mu said, It's true. I have the antidote. But Your Highness, do you not find Cat9 suspicious at all? Sapphiro stared at Steward Mu in resignation. Cat9 saved my life a few months ago, which almost cost him his own. Do you think I'll suspect him? Steward Mu was speechless. How was he supposed to tell Sapphiro that he was her savior, not this impersonator? Sapphiro grew impatient as she stared at Steward Mu. Now quickly the antidote. Steward Mu said, Your Highness, has it ever occurred to you that if this is the fake Cat9, you'll be handing him the antidote? Sapphiro was baffled. Feng Wu spoke with a smile. Steward Mu, you won't give us the antidote. Is it because you're going to give it to the Feng family? That woke Sapphiro up, and she stretched out one open palm. Seeing the persistent look in her eyes, Steward Mu couldn't refuse. Steward Mu's eyes were filled with hatred. If he could kill with his eyes, Feng Wu would have died many times over. Unfortunately, Steward Mu might be in the right, but he still couldn't dispute her. He flushed with rage. Sapphiro took the antidote from Steward Mu and stuffed it into Feng Wu's hands. Steward Mu stared at Feng Wu. Be careful with it. I'm gonna kill you if you give it to Feng Wu. Feng Wu chuckled. Give it to Feng Wu. Steward Mu, do you think that I know her? Sapphiro threw a dirty look at Steward Mu. Other people may betray me, and you, Steward Mu, may slip her the antidote, but Cat9 will never do that. Because he's an accomplice in Chaoga's kidnapping, he's naturally Feng Wu's enemy. That was why Sapphiro trusted this Cat9. What she didn't know was that this Cat9 was actually Feng Wu. If she knew this truth, she would probably burst into tears. Sapphiro handed the antidote to Feng Wu and reminded her. Take this. Tomorrow, we'll count on you to handle Feng Wu. Feng Wu nodded with a smile. By the way, take this to my senior brother. Sapphiro took a brocade box out of her chest pocket and handed it to Feng Wu. You know where he is, don't you? Well, Feng Wu scratched her head. I knew where he was before, but I don't know if he's changed locations. Who was Sapphiro's senior brother? Feng Wu had no clue at all, so she gave an ambiguous answer. Luckily, Sapphiro didn't find the answer odd. Sapphiro said grumpily, Of course he won't stay in one place for very long. As far as I know, he's with my younger martial uncle. After all, my senior brother is his most valued junior member. Her younger martial uncle? Who was that? After some thought, Sapphiro heaved a sigh. What a pity. My younger martial uncle has such high standards for his disciples. Even someone as talented as my senior brother isn't good enough. I wonder what kind of disciple he'll find in the end. Feng Wu was completely at a loss, but she wouldn't ask the obvious question. Luckily, she didn't have to ask. Sapphiro gave the answer first. She said it herself. Chapter 1641. Chapter 1641 Untitled. Although my younger martial uncle is a superior master teacher, he hasn't been able to find a disciple to inherit his skills. If he still can't find one in the end, I think he'll leave everything to my sister, Sapphiro murmured to herself. Sapphiro revealed a lot of secrets in that statement. Her senior brother was very talented. Her younger martial uncle was the master teacher. Her sister was very likely to become the disciple of the master teacher. And, before Feng Wu had time to process all the information, she felt Sapphiro's cold gaze on her. Quickly, deliver the things and make Feng Wu agree to the horse race with me tomorrow. Don't be late. After that, Sapphiro finally left. With her gone, Feng Wu had to face the very angry Steward Mu. As expected, as soon as Sapphiro turned a corner, Steward Mu stared at Feng Wu with his gloomy eyes and smirked. Follow me. Putting his hands behind his back, Steward Mu gave Feng Wu a cold glance before he turned to leave. But Feng Wu didn't move. Walking ahead of her, Steward Mu stared at Feng Wu with eyes that had no warmth. If you don't go with me, you'll know the consequences. Leaning in close to Feng Wu, Steward Mu lowered his voice. And that is. His statement was ambiguous, but Feng Wu understood. She only gave Steward Mu a half smile without saying a word. Steward Mu gave her a hard look before walking away. Feng Wu gave it some thought before following him. Steward Mu smirked, as if some evil plan of his had worked, and he clenched his hands slightly behind his back. After turning a few corners, Steward Mu led Feng Wu into a room. The door locked behind her after she entered, and the two of them were alone in the dark narrow space. A streak of light shone down from above on Steward Mu and Feng Wu, highlighting Steward Mu's eerie smile. You're actually bold enough to come. The two of them were only 3 meters apart, as they stood opposite each other. Feng Wu looked at Steward Mu, unperturbed as usual, and a light smile on her face. Why shouldn't I be? She smiled. Aren't you afraid that I'll kill you, you rascal? Steward Mu's face suddenly darkened, and he reached for Feng Wu's neck in a seemingly relaxed motion. Whoosh! Feng Wu didn't have time to avoid it, and was caught by her neck. Tisk! Steward Mu grinned coldly. I was wondering how impressive you can be. Is this all you can do? Feng Wu's smile didn't change. Are you really not afraid of death? Steward Mu narrowed his eyes. Feng Wu was still smiling, and didn't seem worried at all. Steward Mu said, Don't worry. You're going to die, but I'd like to see who you are before that. As soon as he said those words, his other hand suddenly moved. He reached for Feng Wu's face. He knew better than anyone else that it was a human skin mask, and he was the only one who knew how to take it off. But, when his hand moved to Feng Wu's chin, he realized in surprise that the tiny secret buckle wasn't there. That wasn't right. The secret buckle should be right under the chin, and the mask could only be taken off from there. But to his dismay. Chapter 1642 Untitled. Chapter 1642, Untitled. There was no secret buckle. He couldn't find it anywhere. He couldn't take that mask off. Why is this happening? This isn't right. It's impossible. Steward Mu murmured to himself, and wouldn't believe it. This person was impersonating Cat 9, and Steward Mu was the real Cat 9. He had even made this mask himself, so this shouldn't be happening. Who on earth are you? Why are you pretending to be Cat 9? Speak. Steward Mu bellowed at Feng Wu. Meanwhile, Feng Wu was watching the hysterical Steward Mu with the calmest look in her eyes. Speak. Who are you? I'm gonna rip your face off. Steward Mu yelled like a madman. Feng Wu gave him a pitying look and heaved a long sigh. It was full of resignation. It was as if she had seen through everything. Steward Mu's stomach lurched, and he had a bad feeling. Why did you have to do that? Feng Wu finally spoke, and she gave Steward Mu a look of resignation. If I'm not Cat 9, who is? I am. I am Cat 9. Steward Mu yelled at Feng Wu. Teehee. They heard someone giggling a short distance away. Steward Mu turned around and was horrified. Because Sapphiro was standing right behind him and was laughing uncontrollably. Your Highness, why are you? Steward Mu felt his mouth go dry and he trembled all over. Steward Mu, I never knew that you're such a funny man. Ha 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 ha. She laughed so hard that she was in tears. She then pointed at Steward Mu and said, Did you just tell Cat 9 that he's fake and that you're the real Cat 9? Steward Mu was speechless. Sapphiro asked, Steward Mu, do you know what you're doing? Steward Mu said, Your Highness. Ahem. I was only joking. Please don't be mad. He thought he was going to break down. What else could he do apart from admit that he was only joking? You were only joking? You almost strangled Cat 9. And you call that a joke? Should I throttle you and tell you that I'm only joking then? Steward Mu was speechless. Sapphiro said, Steward Mu, that was pure bullying behavior. You've crossed the line. I can't watch anymore. Steward Mu said, Your Highness. He wanted to tell her that it really wasn't what she thought. He felt like crying. However, Sapphiro had stopped trusting him. Give it to me. What? Steward Mu looked at Sapphiro in confusion. Sapphiro shrugged. Your steward seal. Do I have to be so explicit? Steward Mu's eyes widened. Your Highness, do you mean? The possibility made his blood go cold. Do you not get it? Sapphiro said grumpily. You're an incompetent steward, so I'm temporarily taking back your rights as steward. Do you have a problem with that? Of course Steward Mu had. He had a huge problem with it. But what could he do? He didn't dare say no. Since he couldn't, he had to endure. Just when Steward Mu. Chapter 1643 Untitled. Chapter 1643, Untitled. After Steward Mu gave the seal to Sapphiro, she immediately handed it to Feng Wu. Even Feng Wu was surprised by this, let alone Steward Mu, who was shocked beyond words. Steward Mu said, Your Highness. Sapphiro snapped. Steward Mu, I'm so disappointed in you. Cat 9 will serve as steward for a while. As for when you'll get the job back, it'll depend on your performance. Sapphiro then left for real. Steward Mu looked at Feng Wu, and Feng Wu returned his stare with a smile. Steward Mu shook from head to toe with rage, but Feng Wu smiled happily. Do you really think I won't kill you? He stared at Feng Wu. Feng Wu gave him a half-smile. Heh, Steward Mu suddenly laughed. Since you've played the part of Cat 9 so well, if I kill you now, I can become Cat 9 again, right? Feng Wu said, That's right. Steward Mu stared at Feng Wu in disbelief. He wondered if this rascal had lost his mind. He was actually encouraging him. Since that was the case, he decided that he should give him what he wanted. Steward Mu could always disappear for a while. He could always find some excuse. It was reasonable that the old steward would choose to live in seclusion after being removed from his position. At that thought, Steward Mu suddenly reached out and grabbed Feng Wu's throat. But Feng Wu only smiled at him. Steward Mu's vision turned dark. The next second, he realized in surprise that there was a grip around his own throat. His eyes widened in disbelief. You. He was too surprised to speak, for he had threatened Cat 9's life several times already, but he had never fought back. It had given Steward Mu the wrong idea. He was led to believe that he was more than capable of killing the rascal. But that actually wasn't the case. It took the rascal only one strike. She used a single strike to defeat him. She grabbed him by the neck and threatened to kill him. Why you? Steward Mu was shocked as he stared at Feng Wu in disbelief. You were pretending. Feng Wu smiled at him. That's right. Steward Mu, did you only just find out? How slow. Steward Mu shook with anger, and his face was as red as a cooked shrimp. Who on earth are you? Steward Mu had an ominous feeling as he studied Feng Wu. Feng Wu chuckled. Who do you think I am? Steward Mu said. You stole my mask, which means that you know where my secret stash is. No one knows unless. His face suddenly lost all its color. Why, you're not. Just then, Feng Wu slid her hand across her forehead, and the next second, Steward Mu saw her real face. Steward Mu was the real Cat 9 whom Feng Wu and Feng Sun had questioned earlier, and he had faked his death to get away. Therefore, one could imagine how shocked he was when he saw Feng Wu's face. He felt as if he had been struck by lightning. "Why you?" Steward Mu's face kept twitching. Chapter 1644 Untitled. Chapter 1644, Untitled. When Steward Mu saw Feng Wu's face, he was so shocked that he almost lost his mind. "Impossible. This is impossible. How could it be Feng Wu? How? Why are you?" Steward Mu jolted and returned to himself. "So you weren't fooled by my act?" Feng Wu smiled. "What do you think?" Steward Mu said. "You followed me here." Feng Wu chuckled. Steward Mu said, "That's why you know where my storage room is. You took the mask of Cat 9's face and pretended to be me. That's why you came here and made fun of me." Feng Wu was still smiling at him. Steward Mu was completely defeated. He wasn't Feng Wu's match. "What do you want?" A wise man would submit to fate. Since Steward Mu had learned the truth, what he had to do now was find a way to pass this trial. Feng Wu smiled at him. "What do you think? Don't kill me. I'll tell you anything you want. I'll give you anything you need. Please don't kill me." Steward Mu dropped to his knees. Just like the name Cat 9 suggested, he was supposed to have 9 lives like a cat. However, he had made the worst possible mistake when he revealed his secret to Feng Wu. Cat 9 couldn't feel pain. His heart was 30% more to the right than a normal person's, and so was the center between his eyebrows. Normal fatal attacks usually didn't work on him, which was why he was said to have 9 lives. But such a secret meant nothing to Feng Wu. Therefore, he had to beg for Feng Wu's forgiveness. Feng Wu smiled at him. "Are you going to tell me everything I want to know?" "Yes, as long as I know the answer anything." Steward Mu looked very sincere. Crossing her arms, Feng Wu smiled at him. "All right, let's start with the master teacher. Who is he?" Steward Mu smiled wryly. "Don't you know who Master Teacher Sibasi is? He's the most capable man on the grassland, and is as powerful as the chieftain himself." Feng Wu said grumpily. "Of course I know who Master Teacher Sibasi is. What's his relationship to the chieftain's family?" Master Teacher Sibasi is a very mysterious person. No one knows when he comes and goes or his whereabouts. We usually only get to see him during the recovery of the spiritual essence. As for his relationship to the chieftain's family, to be honest, he's never been too close to them. After all, he's the spiritual leader, while the chieftain is the secular leader. Which one should the people of the grassland follow? They're naturally rivals for the people's faith. As for Princess Sapphiro, her master is Si Qiyin, the senior brother of Sibasi. That's why Sapphiro calls him younger martial uncle. She even wants to become his disciple. In the end, the master teacher has very high standards for his disciple. He has been searching for many years without finding a suitable one. Not only will his disciple inherit his skills, they can become the voice of divine power as well. How insane is that? That's why everyone on the grassland has their eye on that position, Sapphiro included. But Sapphiro has very mediocre talent, and doesn't have a pleasant disposition either, and has to realize that. Chapter 1645 Untitled. Chapter 1645 Untitled. But Sapphiro has a younger sister Ranmil who's incredible. She's unmatched in talent, medical skills, disposition, appearance, everything. All the grasslanders worship her. Many say that in the end, Ranmil will become the master teacher's disciple. Back then, even the chieftain had asked the master teacher if that would be the case, and the master teacher didn't answer either way. Feng Wu had zero interest in becoming the master teacher's disciple, because she already had her beautiful master, the best teacher in the entire continent. How could she feel the same way about other people? "Miss Feng Wu, I see that you don't think much about becoming the master teacher's disciple." Steward Mu was very sharp, and he immediately noticed it. Feng Wu only smiled. "Miss Feng Wu, there's something you don't know. Let me enlighten you. The master teacher is the guardian of the land of the spirit source." Feng Wu's eyes lit up. Once the spiritual essence recovered, this place would become the land of the spirit source. If Feng Wu could get the seed of the spirit source, her cultivation would greatly benefit from it. There was no way that Feng Wu would give up that chance. However, she didn't let anything show on her face and snorted. So what? It's not like I can get the seed of the spirit source. Cat 9 smiled bitterly. There was only one seed in the land of the spirit source, so getting it would be next to impossible. As for Miss Feng Wu here, Cat 9 admitted that she was very talented and was a good cultivator, but she was far from the best cultivator he had ever met. Even Master Ju was much better than her. So what's the deal with Saphiro's senior brother? Feng Wu asked casually. Somehow, she felt that this senior brother was anything but ordinary. Cat 9 smiled bitterly. Saphiro's senior master is Master Ju, the master I work for. Although he seems cold, deep down he's soft and kind. When I make mistakes, other masters would have punished me. Master Ju would be angry, but he has never chased me away. Can anyone be that kind? Feng Wu raised an eyebrow. Cat 9 smiled wryly. Yes, Master Ju is the best master ever. Feng Wu asked more questions about Master Ju. Black robes? He likes to wear black robes with a dark pattern? Feng Wu raised an eyebrow. Is it like this? She took a piece of black cloth from her sleeve. It was lined with a dark golden serpent pattern. Yes, that's right. This is from Master Ju's clothes. Where did you get this? Cat 9 stared at Feng Wu in surprise. Where did I get it? Feng Wu smirked inwardly. She had been looking for an answer everywhere, and it had now been handed to her on a plate. Feng Wu had gotten that cloth from the man in black. As for who that man was, needless to say, it was the master Cat 9 had mentioned, Master Ju. Feng Wu smiled a little, and her eyes shone coldly. She had taken the risk in pretending to be Cat 9 to find Chaoga. And now, she finally had a general idea of who had taken her. So it was Master Ju. Seeing the change in Feng Wu's expression, Steward Mu suddenly had an ominous feeling. Why, you said you would let me go. He pointed at Feng Wu with a shaking finger. Let you go? In your dreams? Feng Wu smirked. Chapter 1646 Untitled. Chapter 1646, Untitled. I've told you so much, but you wanted to tell me all those things yourself, right? Crossing her hands behind her back, Feng Wu smiled at Steward Mu. Haven't you already figured out how to make the person known as Steward Mu disappear? Steward Mu's eyes widened. You were never going to let me go. Feng Wu said, That's right. You have 9 lives, and know how to disguise yourself. If I let you go this time, it won't be easy to find you again. As she spoke, Feng Wu raised her hand and reached for the point between Steward Mu's eyebrows. Only this time, she moved a little to the right. Steward Mu stiffened. He had hoped that Feng Wu wouldn't know about his skewed vital point. But as soon as Feng Wu raised her hand, he realized that he was doomed. He wouldn't survive this time. There was a blank moment before he was completely dead. During that brief moment, Steward Mu wondered how Saphiro was going to go up against someone as clever as Feng Wu. She had already been fooled by Feng Wu. She had told Feng Wu to her face about her plan to get rid of her, before letting Feng Wu execute that plan. No, Steward Mu felt sorry for Saphiro. However, he had no time to pity other people now as he fell to the ground with a thump and closed his eyes forever. Feng Wu remained calm as she studied the dead Steward Mu. He was an accomplice in Chaoga's kidnapping, and for those who dared to harm one of her own, she would always get her revenge twice over. She had never planned to let him go. With a grim face, Feng Wu bent down, found the secret buckle of the human skin mask on Steward Mu's face, and used a little force. The next second, she removed the mask from his face. She finally saw his real face. Maybe because he wore these masks to play different roles all the time, his real face was pale, shriveled, and gaunt. She didn't even know who he really was. After searching Steward Mu, she found a thumb-sized wooden plate on his waist, which read, Jiangyan. So, was that Cat 9's real name? Putting away the little plate, Feng Wu took Steward Mu's robe in case she had to play him later. After all that was done, Feng Wu took out a small bottle of yellow potion. She only poured out 3 drops. Sizzle. It looked like sulfuric acid was being poured over Steward Mu. In less than a minute, all that was left of him was a yellow puddle. It was as if Steward Mu had never existed. Feng Wu calmly put Cat Nine's mask back on. She then left the room and headed for Master Ju's place. According to Sapphiro, Master Ju was with the chieftain right now, which gave her the chance to search Master Ju's place to see if Chaoga was hidden there. It was obvious that Master Ju was a very important figure, as his tent was only a few hundred meters from the chieftain's. Because Cat Nine was Master Ju's man, he could walk right inside. The night was dark. The silver moonlight shone on the ground. All was quiet in the campsite. Chapter 1647 Untitled. Chapter 1647 Untitled. The night was silent. Moonlight poured down like water. It was very quiet all around, and there were no sounds of life. The campsite was pitch dark, giving it an eerie feel. The tent wasn't sealed, and Feng Wu could make her way right in. She thought about Chaoga, and wondered what torment the girl had to be going through now. She had no reason to stop, or be terrified of the darkness. At that thought, Feng Wu walked in. As expected, there was no one inside, and it was frighteningly quiet. Master Ju should still be with the chieftain, and the air felt cold and still. This was the best chance for Feng Wu. Because Master Ju wasn't here, she could search the entire tent without fear of being discovered, and she might be able to find where Chaoga was hidden. Feng Wu had very sharp eyes, and she could see at night as well as during the day. It was a big, spacious tent. There were some tables, chairs, and carpets, but not much other furniture, and she could see the entire place at one glance. There was no place to hide a person. If Chaoga was hidden here, there had to be a secret gadget of some sort. Feng Wu looked around and shook her head. Since she wasn't anywhere to be seen, the only possibility was underground. The basement hadn't been searched. However, if there really was such a place, where was it? Luckily, Feng Wu was an expert in this. She did a grid search and eliminated all unlikely spots. In the end, her gaze landed on a lampshade overhead. The style was quite simple. It was square and nothing special. Most people would have taken one look and then ignored it. But not Feng Wu. She immediately saw what was different about the lampshade. Because there was a spot on the lampshade that was much cleaner than the rest. There was much less dust, indicating that it was touched often. "You're here." Feng Wu was still staring at the lampshade when she heard a cold voice behind her. In an empty tent in the dark night, a normal person would have been frightened to death if they suddenly heard such a voice. Feng Wu was startled as well, but she soon collected herself. "Master Ju." She bowed respectfully. Master Ju was covered in black from head to toe, and gave off a cold, ferocious air. His eyes were resolute and without warmth. He looked Feng Wu up and down. Feng Wu felt her hands go cold, as if she had been seen through. Had Master Ju figured out that she was an imposter? Just when Feng Wu's heart began to race, Master Ju looked away. The window was open, and Master Ju stood there looking at the night sky with his hands behind his back. With the man looking away, Feng Wu relaxed. This Master Ju was the man in black whom Feng Wu had lured away, Chaoga's kidnapper. But Feng Wu knew that she couldn't stare at him with hatred now. She couldn't even show any emotion, because a powerful man could be very sharp. Therefore, she lowered her head and adjusted her mood. When she looked up, her eyes were as clear as if they had been rinsed. Luckily, Master Ju had been looking out the window the whole time, and didn't notice the change in her. Chapter 1648 Untitled. Chapter 1648 Untitled. Master Ju suddenly turned around and stared at Feng Wu with cold eyes. "Have you spoken with the princess?" Luckily, Feng Wu had learned many things from Cat 9, and she was able to answer the question. "Yes, master," she said respectfully. "Remember, nothing is more important than the seed of the spirit source this time," Master Ju said solemnly. "Yes, master." Feng Wu nodded. Just then, Feng Wu felt a shadow towering over her. She wondered why Master Ju was standing so close. Did he have to stand so close to his subordinate? She was still wondering when a finger raised her chin. What? Feng Wu went stiff, and her eyes widened. Had she been discovered? Was Master Ju teasing her now? Should she make a move? What if Master Ju didn't have any evidence? Feng Wu was still hesitating, when the hand suddenly gripped her chin. What are you thinking? Master Ju didn't sound so stiff now. Feng Wu didn't know what to say. It wasn't that she didn't want to speak, she just didn't know what to say. Because if she said the wrong thing, she would expose herself. Jiang Yan, you're still so stubborn. He sounded a little helpless, and there was also a little affection in his voice. Jiang Yan. Feng Wu's stomach lurched when she heard the name. That was familiar. She had heard it before. All right. It came back to her. She had seen the name on Steward Mu's plate. That name was Jiang Yan. Feng Wu heaved a sigh in relief because Master Ju didn't realize that this Cat 9 was a fake one. He was acting strangely precisely because he thought he was with Cat 9. However, Master Ju's affectionate touch gave Feng Wu a strange idea. Could it be really like that? If that was the case, Feng Wu shuddered. No, it couldn't be like that. However, luck seemed to be working against her. While she was trying to convince herself, Master Ju put his hands on her shoulders. This wasn't happening. Feng Wu's stomach lurched, and she almost fought back. Yin, you're always like this. The affection in Master Ju's eyes gradually turned into sorrow. Why are you always running away from me? Feng Wu didn't know what to say. Was this the cruel, mysterious man in black she met before? So, he would show sadness and weakness with certain people. However, a chill ran down Feng Wu's spine. Judging by Master Ju's attitude toward Jiang Yan, she couldn't imagine how much rage and hatred he would unleash on her when he learned that she had killed Jiang Yan. At that thought, Feng Wu felt uneasy. With that she shuddered. But her shudder only made Master Ju want to make another move. He reached out with his big warm hand and caressed Feng Wu's cheek. Yin, for you, I can betray the whole world. Why do you always feel ashamed? Master Ju slowly stroked Feng Wu's face. You've worn this mask for so long that I've almost forgotten what you look like. As Master Ju caressed her face, his finger. Chapter 1649 Untitled. Chapter 1649, Untitled. Master Ju's finger reached Feng Wu's chin. Feng Wu almost jumped. Because she could tell that he wanted to remove her mask. She couldn't let that happen. Master Ju had seen Feng Wu before, and her identity would be exposed if she didn't stop him. And that wasn't even the most important thing. When Master Ju found out that it wasn't Jiang Yan behind the mask, Feng Wu didn't even need to imagine what would happen then. The consequences were too terrifying for her to think about. That was why Feng Wu was shaking. She caught Master Ju's hand. The more dangerous the situation was, the calmer Feng Wu became. Feng Wu could tell from Master Ju's tone that he wanted Cat 9, but Cat 9 had been avoiding him. That would make it much easier for her. She caught his hand and stared at him coldly. In her eyes there was anger, warning, and a little sadness and pleading. She didn't know if Cat 9 had so many emotions, but right now, she was using her award-winning acting to show all of them. Master Ju had been quite imposing before, but he returned to himself when he saw the look in Feng Wu's eyes. Master Ju immediately released her. He even took a step back. Yen. Of course Feng Wu wouldn't miss such a great chance. She took a step back as well. Ahem. Embarrassed, Master Ju changed the subject. By the way, bring that Duan Chaoga out. Wait. Feng Wu didn't expect to get information on Chaoga so soon. The pleasant surprise came so quickly that she didn't have time to react. Go. He glanced at Feng Wu. Feng Wu said, all right. Judging by Master Ju's tone, Cat 9 should know where Chaoga was kept, but she wasn't the real Cat 9, so how was she supposed to know where Chaoga was kept? However, if she let it show that she didn't know, Master Ju would definitely be suspicious, and she would be in trouble. Master Ju looked at Feng Wu in bewilderment. Huh? He was prompting her. If she kept stalling, he would grow suspicious. Yen. Master Ju frowned a little. Feng Wu's eyes lit up when she recalled the special lampshade she had seen earlier. Now she could only try. With that thought, Feng Wu slowly walked up to the lampshade. She was still hesitating, when Master Ju gave her a bewildered look. He then waved his hand. Poof! The candle in the lampshade lit up. Feng Wu stared at the lampshade, but nothing changed. So that wasn't the real entrance, was it? Feng Wu's stomach lurched. If she hadn't been careful earlier, she would have been exposed by now. Just then, Master Ju raised his hand, and the light went out. Click. As the light went out, a door slowly opened. Feng Wu didn't know what to say. It really was the lampshade. She didn't know that was possible. It was a good thing she had been so cautious. If she had taken any action just then, her cover would have been blown. Luckily, her caution saved her life. Just then, Master Ju glanced at her and said casually, "Let's go." Chapter 1650 Untitled. Chapter 1650, Untitled. Master Ju glanced at Feng Wu and said casually, "Let's go." Feng Wu nodded and followed him. There was a silent tunnel up ahead, so silent that it was scary. They could hear each other's breathing. The silence only accentuated the awkwardness. A few times, Master Ju wanted to say something, but was stopped by Feng Wu's stare. Master Ju could only sigh to himself. They walked through the dark tunnel before reaching a dark room. It was a small square room built from a special material that was used to imprison capable cultivators. The door opened with a click. Feng Wu was filled with rage when she saw the scene inside. Her pupils contracted and her eyes went blood red. Chaoga was tied to a pillar with her hands chained down. She was covered in wounds and blood. At that moment, Feng Wu wanted to kill Master Ju right there and then. Master Ju immediately felt her rage, and he gave her a sidelong glance. What? How sharp? Naturally, Feng Wu couldn't say anything. She fought that impulse with all her strength. After taking a deep breath, Feng Wu smiled a little. She's been tortured. The blood on Chaoga looked fresh. Feng Wu could put the wounds to within an hour. She had been abused. Yes, Master Ju didn't think much of it. It was Xiao Yun probably. Xiao Yun? Who was that? Feng Wu couldn't ask. She could only make a mental note of that name. Master Ju seemed to see the dissatisfaction in Feng Wu's eyes, so he explained, which was very rare for him. This Duan Chaoga is quite interesting. Feng Wu said, really? Between her life and her friend, she chose the latter, which was a really odd choice. However, because she was the first person to ever make that choice, I let her live. Don't worry. I only kill people. I don't torture them. If you're not happy. Feng Wu looked expectantly at Master Ju. Master Ju was suddenly very happy, because he liked it when Yin looked at him like that. If you don't want to see blood, how about I let you take care of this Duan Chaoga? Feng Wu's eyes lit up. Can I? Master Ju smiled meaningfully. Of course you can. You know I want nothing more than to have you stay. Feng Wu didn't know what to say. This Duan Chaoga. Feng Wu hesitated. We were using her existence to get rid of Feng Wu, but Feng Wu isn't very important herself. What's important is Jun Linyuan who's behind her, said Master Ju. Feng Wu asked, how are we going to get rid of Feng Wu? Feng Wu found this disguise as Cat9 very worthwhile. People just kept telling her how they would work against her. Master Ju smiled. Yan, do you know her? You sound like you care a lot about her. Feng Wu said, she tricked me once. She did? How bold. Yan, don't worry. She'll be crying soon. Feng Wu asked, why? Master Ju said, because of Jun Linyuan. Feng Wu's stomach lurched. What about Jun Linyuan? It seems that the Zhenhua Empire thinks that he's missing. Master Ju smiled. He was about to speak, when Chaoga woke up from her unconsciousness. What are you going to do to Xiao Wu? Chapter 1651 Untitled. Chapter 1651 Untitled. When Chaoga woke up and saw the two people in front of her, she bared her teeth at them. What are you going to do to Xiao Wu? Master Ju gave Chaoga a contemptuous look and didn't say a word. He only told Feng Wu, after the spiritual essence recovers, you'll stay right here with me. Remember? What else could Feng Wu do but nod her head? Master Ju smiled happily because Yen was much more obedient today than usual. Feng Wu was very good at reading people, so she immediately could tell what Master Zhu was thinking. That only made her more wary, because the more he cared about Jiang Yan, the angrier he would be once he found out the truth. Master Zhu's capability was far beyond hers. The two of you are abominable. Chowga glared at them. You disgust me. I'm going to throw up my dinner from last night. Master Zhu didn't care about other things, but this was different. Feng Wu could sense him getting angry, and his rage was accumulating fast. But Chowga didn't seem to realize it. She glowered and said, "What are you looking at? Kill me if you don't like it. You want to use me to set Xiao Wu up? In your dreams." It pained Feng Wu to hear that. Chowga knew what she said would set Master Zhu off, but she wanted him to kill her, because she had heard how they were going to use her. Silly girl. Feng Wu felt tears coming to her eyes, and she had to try very hard not to cry. Kill me if you want. The two of you disgust me. I'm going to throw up. Chowga wasn't very good at insulting people, so she repeated those words over and over again. But that was enough to enrage Master Zhu. He stepped out and raised a hand. Chowga smiled in relief. The next second, Feng Wu caught Master Zhu's arm. He frowned and looked at Feng Wu in bewilderment. Feng Wu shook her head. You promised me just then that Duan Chowga will be in my keeping. Have you forgotten? Master Zhu frowned. She deserves to die. His yen was sacred and inviolable to him. But this woman had just insulted him. Feng Wu smiled wryly. So, do you always go back on your word? Master Zhu was speechless. He grunted, flipped his sleeves and stormed off. The gust of wind that was kicked up blew over Chowga's face. Chowga's cheek was cut, and blood ran down her face. Feng Wu gave Chowga a grumpy look after Master Zhu was gone. Chowga was furious. Hey, what are you looking at? You're so annoying. Feng Wu said, I just saved your life, and you call me annoying. Hey, I didn't ask you to save me, did I? Did I? You ruined my plan. Feng Wu said, how can I ruin anything for you when I saved your life? You're unbelievable. Chowga went scarlet in the face. You're the unbelievable one. I want to die. Why did you save me? Feng Wu looked at her in resignation. Do you really want to die? Chowga said, yes, so what? Feng Wu said, Duan Chowga, have you lost your mind? Why don't you want to live? Chowga said, you're his accomplice. You have no right to say that. Humph. Go away. Get out of my sight. Feng Wu heard. Chapter 1652 Untitled. Chapter 1652 Untitled. Feng Wu heard the footsteps outside get fainter, and she gave Chowga a grumpy look. Do you really want me to go? Chowga yelled at Feng Wu. Go away. Go away. Feng Wu said, I'll leave then. Chowga snorted. You sound as if I'll stop you. You're so ridiculous. However, before she could go on, Feng Wu took off her mask. Ah! Chowga shrieked. Shoo! Feng Wu silenced her with her finger. Chowga immediately nodded, but she still couldn't contain her excitement. Ah, Xiao Wu! Xiao Wu! Xiao Wu, is it really you? Oh God! Oh my God! I knew you would come save me. And here you are. Xiao Wu. Chowga was so excited that she wanted to run to Feng Wu, but with all the chains, she couldn't move. Feng Wu rubbed her head grumpily. Do you still want me to go now? No, Xiao Wu is the best. I don't want you to go. Chowga, the tough girl, had turned completely soft. They hugged each other and cheered for a while before they returned to themselves. I'll get you out. Feng Wu then tried to remove the chains. Wait. Chowga stopped her. Feng Wu looked up and was confused. Chowga smiled wryly. Xiao Wu, you can't get me out yet. Feng Wu asked, why? Chowga said, the chains aren't just locked, there's a seal on them as well. Master Zhu will know as soon as you tamper with it. Feng Wu said, don't worry about it. I can take care of him. Chowga realized that she was right. From what she had observed, Master Zhu definitely had a thing for Feng Wu, no for Cat 9. But Chowga still smiled bitterly. Xiao Wu, it still won't work. Feng Wu frowned. Why? Chowga said, I have something planted in my body. They told me that it'll explode if I step out of this room. Feng Wu's eyes widened. Could something so horrible really exist? She immediately examined Chaoga's body, and her eyes widened when she was done. There really is a small black dot on your chest over your heart, and it's pulsating, as if it's alive. It's, Fengwu drew in her breath. What she didn't say was that this living creature was made from metal, and a lot like the bomb Chaoga had described. Damn it. If Fengwu had felt a little guilty about killing Cat 9 at first, it was completely gone now. She wanted to kill Master Ju right there and then. I can't get you out now. Otherwise, the consequences will be unimaginable. Taking a deep breath, Fengwu looked at Chaoga. Chaoga, do you trust me? Why do you even ask? Chaoga said grumpily. You're the only person I trust in my life. It pained Fengwu to hear that. Of course she knew the answer. When Master Ju had told Chaoga to choose between life and friendship, she willingly gave up her life to protect Fengwu. How was Fengwu going to repay such a friendship? Chapter 1653 Untitled. Chapter 1653, Untitled. Chaoga, don't worry. I'll think of something. I'll find a way to save you. You just have to promise me one thing. Fengwu looked into Chaoga's eyes. Chaoga looked at her in bewilderment. Fengwu said, You have to wait for me to save you. Don't give up. Got it? Chaoga said, All right. Fengwu poked her head with a finger. If they threaten you with me, don't give in. All right? Chaoga said, No, you're Xiaowu. I can't let them threaten you. Fengwu said, You little idiot. You know I'm amazing. How can they threaten me? Chaoga said, You have a point. All right. Fengwu knew that Chaoga could be a little stubborn in that aspect, so she had to explain everything clearly. Otherwise, Chaoga would do it again. So they were only bluffing. Next time when something like this happens, you have to protect your own life first. Got it? As long as you're alive, you can wait until I come to your rescue. Understood? Chaoga said, No, if I have to choose between you and me, I'll always choose you. Before she could finish, Fengwu heard clear footsteps outside. She made a gesture to hush Chaoga, while she quickly put the mask back on. 3 seconds later, Cat 9 reappeared and Fengwu disappeared. Chaoga stared at her in amazement. It had never occurred to her that it could be done in 3 seconds. Xiaowu, what if someone pretends to be you in the future? Chaoga panicked a little. Fengwu chuckled. That's easy. We can do this gesture. If it's correct, then it's the real me. She then raised 2 fingers and made a yeah gesture to Chaoga. I'll use this, and you can use the okay one. No one else will understand apart from us. What do you think? Fengwu smiled. Yes. Chaoga was elated. Only the 2 of them knew this signal. Even His Royal Highness didn't know. The footsteps grew closer and closer. Soon, a figure showed up in front of Fengwu. It was a teenager wearing a purple robe. His eyebrows and the outer corners of his eyes slanted upward, giving him an alluring look. He was, Cat 9, didn't you go to Princess Sapphiro? Why are you back? Fengwu frowned. This man seemed to be very familiar with Cat 9, so he could only be one of a limited number of people. Hey, isn't it Duan Chaoga? I whipped her half dead only just then. What? She's already awake now? The pretty teenager walked around Chaoga, clicking his tongue. Fengwu's face immediately turned livid. She knew who he was. Master Ju had said just then that Chaoga's wounds were inflicted by Xiaoyun. It had to be him. He had hurt her friend. And Fengwu wouldn't stand for it. Thump. She raised her hand and slapped Xiaoyun in the face. Xiaoyun was dumbfounded. He was hit before he even instigated anything. Before Xiaoyun could react, Fengwu kicked him. Thump. Xiaoyun was kicked away. He made a perfect arc in the air, before dropping to the ground with a thump. There was the crisp sound of something heavy being knocked over. You. Xiaoyun almost fainted from the pain. Would Fengwu stop there? Obviously not. Chapter 1654 Untitled. Chapter 1654 Untitled. Fengwu quickly charged forward and leapt up. When she landed, her fist smashed right into Xiaoyun. Thump. Poor Xiaoyun. He had only just arrived, but was beaten up before he even instigated anything. Thump, thump, thump. Feng Wu punched and kicked, unleashing her anger. She only stopped 10 minutes later when she was tired herself. Xiao Yin lay on the ground and was barely breathing. After a long while, he finally struggled to his feet and pointed at Feng Wu. "Cat 9, you hit me. How dare you?" Some of his teeth were missing, and he made hissing sounds as he spoke. Feng Wu smirked. "Yes, I hit you. Spout bullshit again and I'll kill you." "You?" Xiao Yin was furious. He knew about what was going on between Master Ju and Cat 9, and he had often mocked and threatened Cat 9 with it. Cat 9 became easily abashed and didn't dare vent his anger, nor would he go to Master Ju about it, so he was always suffering. "You hit me. Ha! You actually dared to hit me. I'll tell everyone." Feng Wu smirked. "About what?" Xiao Yin laughed. "About what? What else can it be? The thing between you and Master Ju, of course. Haha. What do you think people will say when they hear what the proud Master Ju is doing with his servant?" Staring at Xiao Yin, Feng Wu suddenly smiled. The look in her eyes made Xiao Yin's stomach lurch. Somehow he had an ominous feeling. But Feng Wu didn't stop there. "Really? What is Master Ju doing with his servant?" Feng Wu chuckled. Xiao Yin was provoked. This man used to be so easily threatened, but he was all smiles and so calm now. Xiao Yin didn't believe that he could pretend for long. Xiao Yin smirked. "I saw it with my own eyes. Master Ju pressed you against the wall, and the two of you were kissing. Humph. That view tsk. If I tell other people, everyone will turn away from Master Ju, and you won't be any better." Feng Wu said. "So, are you sure you're going to tell everyone?" Xiao Yin said. "Of course." Feng Wu said. "What if Master Ju told you not to say anything?" Xiao Yin said. I might be working for Master Ju now, but why do you think he would have any control over me? Master Ju favors you only, and I've been disappointed with him for a long time. All I have for him is hatred now. I want my revenge. I'll reveal your secret. Ah." Before Xiao Yin could finish, he screamed. Looking down, Xiao Yin saw that a sharp blade had pierced his chest from behind. Blood tainted the clothes over his chest like a blooming red flower. It then dripped down. Arg arg. Xiao Yin wanted to speak, but blood filled his mouth when he opened it. He looked at Feng Wu with eyes filled with rage, hatred and resentment, but there was also curiosity. He turned around. Behind him, it was none other than Master Ju himself. Actually, that had been Feng Wu's plan all along. She had set Xiao Yin up to be killed. She could have killed Xiao Yin in secret, but she didn't want to. She wanted to kill him when she was facing him. Chapter 1655 Untitled. Chapter 1655 Untitled. Xiao Yin had tortured Chaoga, so of course Feng Wu wouldn't let Xiao Yin die so easily. That was why she hadn't given Xiao Yin a chance to speak first, before she beat the crap out of him. With all the noise, of course Master Ju heard it. Even if he wasn't curious, he still cared about Cat 9 and his safety, so of course he would come down here. Master Ju arrived when Xiao Yin had almost been beaten unconscious. Feng Wu then set Xiao Yin up. Out of everything, that foolish Xiao Yin had to say that he would tell other people. Master Ju didn't care what the world would think of him, but Cat 9 did, so Xiao Yin had to die. Feng Wu used Master Ju to kill Xiao Yin square and fair. Only then was her anger appeased a little. Thump. Xiao Yin fell to the ground with a thump. Feng Wu narrowed her eyes. She then stared at Master Ju. "Why did you kill him?" Master Ju wiped the blood off his sword blade with a white cloth, and said indifferently, "Because he deserved to die." Feng Wu nodded. Master Ju glanced at Feng Wu. "Are you not mad?" Feng Wu asked. "Why should I be?" Master Ju said. "You're always telling me off for being too cruel." Feng Wu didn't say a word. She was counting on him being cruel today. Seeing how Feng Wu was able to get Xiao Yin killed to avenge her in such a short time, Chaoga was over the moon, and admired her greatly. Xiao Wu was as clever as ever. She didn't even need to get revenge herself. Not to mention that she had done it in such a short time. How could Chaoga not feel amazed? When she saw Feng Wu talking to Master Ju, Chaoga felt very anxious, but at the same time, she admired Feng Wu even more. If it was her. Chaoga shook her head. She would never be able to stay so calm. By the way, Feng Wu frowned, pointed at Chaoga and asked Master Ju, "What's that time bomb doing inside her?" Master Ju glanced at her. "You know about that?" Feng Wu asked, "Is that something that you can't talk about?" Master Ju said, "Of course I can't tell anyone else, but it's you who's asking. I can tell you everything I know." Feng Wu sighed inwardly. Poor Master Ju. If he knew that Cat 9 was. Master Teacher C. Basie put that bomb there himself. Master Ju smiled wryly. "Even I can't remove it." Feng Wu narrowed her eyes. "Master Teacher C. Basie? Why did he do that?" Master Ju said, "I don't know the specifics. It probably has something to do with my younger martial uncle's future disciple, since to him, finding a disciple is more important than his divine power. However, if Miss Chaoga here takes one step out of this room without removing the bomb, she's dead." Feng Wu said, "So, it really is like that. If she wanted to save Chaoga, she could only go to Master Teacher C. Basie." Feng Wu rubbed her head in frustration. Master Ju grumpily tapped her head. "What's bothering you? Where is Master Teacher C. Basie?" Feng Wu asked. Master Ju said, "Other people won't know that answer, but I just happened to meet with him yesterday, so I can tell you." Feng Wu looked at Master Ju, her eyes filled with hope and expectation. Just then, a thought suddenly struck Master Ju, and his face turned livid. "Why do you suddenly want to see my younger martial uncle? Is it for her?" Chapter 1656 Untitled. Chapter 1656 Untitled. Master Ju pointed at Chaoga. Feng Wu said, "I just." Master Ju said, "You're in love with her, aren't you? I knew it. You've always been into girls." Feng Wu didn't know what to say. Before Feng Wu could say anything, Chaoga was cracking up. "Ha ha ha ha, Master Ju, you're hilarious. Ha ha ha. How can you ask such a question?" If she hadn't been chained down, Chaoga would have rolled around on the ground in a fit of laughter. Master Ju relaxed when he saw Chaoga's reaction. Feng Wu looked away with a wry smile. "I just want to know if I'm qualified enough to be his disciple." Only then did Master Ju heave a sigh of relief. He then rubbed his head. "9. My younger martial uncle doesn't even think I'm qualified. As for you," Feng Wu feigned an angry tone. "What? Can't I be more talented than you?" Master Ju loved it when Cat 9 was like this. The old Cat 9 was very calm and objective, but he was also too cold and distant. This new Cat 9 was so much more lively, and Master Ju liked him a lot better. Master Ju said, Sure. You have much more talent than your master here." Feng Wu asked, "So where's the master teacher?" Master Ju smiled bitterly. "I can't name that place. Even if I could, you won't know where it is. If you can't say it, you can draw it." Feng Wu fetched some pen and paper and put it in front of Master Ju. "Draw it." Luckily, Feng Wu was playing Cat 9, the man Master Ju loved too much to say no to, so there was no way he could turn Feng Wu down. Master Ju sighed in resignation. "I do this only for you. If anyone else had dared ask about the master teacher's secret, there would be consequences." Feng Wu said, "You're the best." Master Ju couldn't believe his ears. He was so excited that he spilled ink on the paper. "What did you say?" He suddenly looked up. Feng Wu asked, "Did I say anything? You must have heard wrong." Master Ju smiled and gave Feng Wu a grumpy look. He found Cat 9 more and more lovely. Master Ju was only teasing Cat 9, because he knew there was no way he would be able to find the place. But because of what he heard, Master Ju was very happy, so he drew a lot of details. In a little while, Master Ju drew a detailed map. There were mountains, rivers, lush trees, and a distinctive cliff. One look and Feng Wu could tell where it was. She rejoiced to see the detailed map, and felt thankful that she had said what she had. Otherwise, that place would be very difficult to find. Master Ju handed the map to Feng Wu and said, "After the spiritual essence recovers, this is going to be the core of the land of the spirit source, since the master teacher provides all the energy for the land." Is the master teacher really so impressive? If that's the case, he can control the entire land of the spirit source, can't he? Feng Wu cried out. But Master Ju gave her a grumpy look. The master teacher is very powerful, but compared with the vast land of the spirit source. Feng Wu understood. Master Ju wanted to keep Cat 9 here forever, but Feng Wu didn't dare linger. Anything could happen at any moment here. Therefore, Feng Wu tactfully turned down Master Ju's invitation to go together, and went straight back to her own tent from the senile part of the campsite. Miss Feng Wu, have you seen His Royal Highness? A maid asked her, half weeping. Chapter 1657 Untitled. Chapter 1657, Untitled. Miss Feng Wu, have you seen His Royal Highness? The weeping maid was from the Crown Prince's residence, and who usually followed Granny Gong around. Feng Wu frowned. Is Jun Linyuan not back yet? The girl Xiangxiao nodded. Feng Wu's eyebrows knitted tighter. Somehow, she had a bad feeling about this. Feng Sun arrived in a hurry when Feng Wu got back to the campsite. Xiao Wu, you're finally back. Where have you been? I couldn't find you anywhere. I was going to go to the other side to ask for your safe return. Feng Sun sounded very anxious. Feng Wu smiled wryly. I'm all right. I was playing another role, that's all. Feng Sun knew how well Feng Wu could disguise herself and felt relieved. That's why I couldn't find you anywhere on the other side. You were someone else. I lost that person I was following. Feng Sun scratched his head and said apologetically, Xiao Wu, I'm sorry. Feng Wu waved her hands and was amused. You might have lost the target, but I didn't. I got something. Feng Sun was relieved to hear that. Good. I knew it. Xiao Wu, you're the best. So what did you find? Actually, he didn't think that Feng Wu would be able to obtain much useful information in such a short time, until Feng Wu told him what happened in the last few hours. What? You took Cat 9's mask and ransacked his storage room. And you pretended to be him, the man who faked his death. You then confronted Steward Mu and killed him? Ha ha ha. You know what Sapphiro is going to do to you. What? Master Ju has Chaoga? Of course I know Master Ju. He's Sapphiro's senior brother, and a famous warrior of the grassland. What? Master Ju is? Whoa, that's big news. What? Master Ju even drew you a map, so that you can have a go. Holy crap. Xiao Wu, do you know what this map means? It means that wherever the master teacher is, it's going to be the core of the land of the spirit source this time. And there's a high chance that we'll find the seed of the spirit source there. This is great news, it really is. You uncovered so much useful stuff. Xiao Wu, you're amazing. How did you do so many things in such a short period of time? Feng Sun couldn't stop singing Feng Wu's praises once he started. Feng Wu was smiling at first, but not anymore. Chaoga is still locked in a dark basement with stale air. Normal people would feel dizzy if they remain in there for too long, let alone Chaoga, who's injured. Feng Wu had wanted to treat Chaoga's injuries, but it would be too obvious and wouldn't do Chaoga any good. Therefore, Feng Wu didn't treat her external injuries, and only gave her some medicine for her internal injuries. Yes, we must rescue Chaoga. Feng Sun pitied Chaoga as well. She was such a warm and passionate girl, but she was so badly hurt now. To save Chaoga, we have to find the master teacher first. With a wry smile, Feng Wu took out a small brocade box. The master teacher doesn't have to be there in person. I just have to steal a streak of spiritual essence from him. With that, I'll be able to remove the time bomb in Chaoga's heart. Chapter 1658 Untitled. Chapter 1658 Untitled. Find the master teacher, and steal a streak of his spiritual essence. Feng Wu smiled bitterly to herself when she recalled how the grassland revered master teacher Si Baisi. This task was probably more difficult than all the tasks before put together. But she couldn't stop just because it was difficult. She had to save Chaoga. Feng Wu shook her head adamantly. Chaoga could give up her own life for her, so why couldn't she do the same? Xiao Wu. Seeing that Feng Wu was deep in thought, Feng Sun felt uneasy, because he didn't know what she was thinking. Feng Wu chuckled. Go and get some sleep. Get your strength back. We have a tough war to fight tomorrow. If Jun Linyuan was around, this wouldn't be a problem. When he showed up, nothing was impossible. But Jun Linyuan wasn't around, and they were on their own. Early next morning, as expected, Feng Wu had only just gotten up, washed and gotten dressed, when she heard someone shouting outside. "Where's Feng Wu? Feng Wu, come out." She agreed to a competition? Why hasn't she come out? Is she trying to hide? Is she that kind of person? I used to think so highly of her. The voices drew nearer. Feng Wu could tell that one of them was Sapphiro's. As expected, when Sapphiро deliberately raised her voice, she attracted everyone's attention. Feng Wu walked out, and soon saw people gathering around. Jun Wuxia and Zhuoqingyu were there as well. But Feng Wu had successfully threatened them before, so they didn't dare get involved this time. But Dugu Yamo hadn't been threatened, so Jun Wuxia and Zhuoqingyu talked her into putting herself forward. Dugu Yamo feigned a doubtful tone. "That's impossible. Why would Feng Wu agree to a horse race against you? You grew up on horseback." Sapphiro smirked. "Why wouldn't she? She agreed to it herself last night. I didn't force her." Feng Wu stepped out at that moment. Sapphiro stared at Feng Wu. "Tell them. I'm telling the truth. You agreed to compete with me yourself." Those on Feng Wu's side all shook their heads repeatedly. "Don't say yes. You can't. Sapphiro is known to be an excellent rider, even by the standards of the grassland. Feng Wu, who had grown up elsewhere, would never be her match. Moreover, Sapphiro had a higher cultivation level than Feng Wu, so Feng Wu was at an absolute disadvantage." Sapphiro smirked. "So, are you going to go back on your word? Huh. Shame on you." Feng Wu gave her a half-smile, and wondered if Sapphiro still hadn't heard about Cat Nine's disappearance. However, since the princess wants a horse race then, Feng Wu smiled. "How about I get to decide what the race course should be?" "Sure." Sapphiro didn't care where the race took place, as long as Feng Wu agreed to participate. Once Feng Wu said yes, she would have 100 ways to kill her. "What route do you want to take?" She stared at Feng Wu. Seeing that Feng Wu had agreed, the others were all surprised. They couldn't understand why Feng Wu would do that. She was using her weakness to compete against her opponent's advantage. She had no hope of winning. Chapter 1659 Untitled. Chapter 1659 Untitled. Jun Wuxia and Zhuoqingyu looked at each other in excitement. Sapphiro had insisted on a horse race against Feng Wu, so there had to be something strange behind it. If Sapphiro could think of something, so could Jun Wuxia and Zhuoqingyu. So Sapphiro had to have prepared something for Feng Wu. Once Feng Wu agreed, would she be able to come back alive? To their surprise, Feng Wu said yes. She said yes. Jun Wuxia clenched her fists. Zhuoqingyu smirked. She's too proud. She has no idea that she's going to get herself killed. Jun Wuxia said, "That's right. Horse riding is tricky. If she falls and breaks something, it'll just be seen as an accident. Moreover," she chuckled, "my brother isn't here, so no one will be there to protect her." Zhuoqingyu stared at Feng Wu before narrowing her eyes. She gloated over Feng Wu's potential predicament. "Feng Wu, you're walking to your doom yourself. When Sapphiro kills you, don't blame us for it." Meanwhile, Jun Wuxia and the others had instigated things without Sapphiro knowing it. Sapphiro sneered at Feng Wu. "What's your route like?" Feng Wu showed Sapphiro the map. "Do you know this place?" Sapphiro found the question idiotic. "I grew up here. I know all the places in this area." "What a silly question. You want to race there? Fine. This mountain has a circular base. We'll start here, run around it, and return to the same spot." "Very well. This is the route then." She then glanced at Feng Wu. "Since you've decided the route, I get to decide what the stakes should be." Feng Wu smiled at Sapphiro. She was curious as to what stakes Sapphiro would propose in front of everyone. "If you win, I'll give you half of my wealth." Sapphiro spoke in a resolute tone. Immediately, everyone gave her strange looks. Was that necessary? It was just a horse race. She was going to give up half of her wealth for it. Feng Wu remained unperturbed, as if she had no idea what half of Sapphiro's wealth meant. "If you lose, Sapphiro gave Feng Wu a strange look. If you lose, you're forbidden to like His Royal Highness. Wow. Everyone saw what Sapphiro was getting at when she said those words. So, Sapphiro was in love with the Crown Prince. But no one found that strange, so they didn't show much reaction. The crowd was discussing among themselves. That's why Sapphiro hates Feng Wu so much. And that explains why Sapphiro is here all the time. And the discussion grew very loud. Everyone was saying that Sapphiro was very frank with her own feelings, and they wondered if Feng Wu would dare agree. So, are you going to say no? Sapphiro smiled at Feng Wu, but her eyes weren't smiling. Feng Wu chuckled. Why should I? When Feng Wu said that. Chapter 1660 Untitled. Chapter 1660, Untitled. Wow. Everyone stared at Feng Wu in amazement. She said yes. How could she? Has she lost her mind? She can't agree to that. Sapphiro's wealth does sound nice, but it's not comparable with His Royal Highness. His Royal Highness treats Feng Wu very differently. He's been protecting her in front of everyone else. But she's so greedy for money. She is. I think she's gone mad. Feng Wu's reputation had improved quite a bit over the past few days. But because of this, she was deemed a money chaser. Despite her calm, Feng Wu was smiling in resignation to herself. What could she do? She didn't have any other choice. This competition against Sapphiro was bound to happen, and she had designed her counterattack the night before. She could turn Sapphiro into a laughingstock while obtaining half of her wealth. So why not? She wasn't a fool. Sapphiro was thrilled when Feng Wu agreed. You agree? Great. This is great. Sapphiro then had someone bring them some pen and paper right away. The ink was ready. All they needed to do was write down their names, which just showed how long Sapphiro had been preparing for this. Soon they both signed their names. When they made an oath to the gods, the deal was sealed. Which horse do you want? Sapphiro pointed at the horses in the stable with a grin. How about I choose one for you? Sapphiro was very confident. All the horses here in the stable had been drugged, and would go haywire when they smelled the scent of the yin-yang needle. What that happened, Feng Wu would. Feng Wu walked into the stable and checked each horse. Many people stood outside. Because the stable only had a plain fence, they could all see inside clearly. I think number 11 is nice and strong. Number 11 just gave birth. It won't last long. She can't choose it. I think number 15 is nice. It has bright eyes. You can tell that it's a clever horse. I think number 17 is nice. Everyone was picking horses, as if they were horse experts. However, Feng Wu shook her head as she walked. Seeing that Feng Wu was about to reach the end, Sapphiro grew anxious. She frowned and asked, Do you not like any of them? Feng Wu shook her head with a wry smile. I'm very picky with horses, because I know how to evaluate them. She was telling the truth. Because her beautiful master pretty much knew everything. He had taught Feng Wu everything he knew. And Feng Wu was an excellent student. The beautiful master only needed to say something once, and she was able to remember everything in perfect order. Therefore, Feng Wu had a lot of knowledge in her head that she didn't even know she knew, but when she needed it, she could find it in her mind. Hearing how strict Feng Wu was with selecting a horse, other people immediately had faith in her. How about I still bet on Feng Wu? I think she's going to win. Plus, do you see how high her standard is when it comes to horses? She must know them well. The people of the grassland aren't the only ones who know how to ride horses. We can do it equally well. It's not inevitable that we'll lose. No, I have to support Miss Feng Wu. That's right. We have to. Chapter 1661 Untitled. Chapter 1661 Untitled. However, Feng Wu had almost gone through the entire stable looking for a horse. Sapphiro grew impatient and stared at Feng Wu. Which horse are you going to choose? You're not stalling, are you? I'm warning you. We made a deal. If you don't take the bet, you lose. She was also feeling agitated because everyone had disliked Feng Wu at first, and had seemed to take Sapphiro's side. But now, As the crowd came back to their senses, it wasn't so easy to fool them anymore. Hey, here's a nice horse. Feng Wu then saw the last horse. It was a brownish-red color and was all skin and bones. Even one of its legs was crooked. Everyone was speechless. Did you hear what Feng Wu just said? She said it was a nice horse. Ha 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 ha. A nice horse? Is she out of her mind? Can't she see that it's the worst horse? Does she know anything about horses? Why did I hear that Feng Wu only learned how to ride a horse a short while ago? So, will Feng Wu definitely choose that horse? I don't think so. If we lose, we only lose some money. But if she loses, she'll be forbidden to like Jun Linyuan. That's unimaginable. Immediately, everyone looked at Feng Wu nervously. Please don't choose that one. When everyone was trying to use their mind power to stop Feng Wu from choosing the horse, Feng Wu. To everyone's surprise, she told Sapphiro, I want this horse. No. Quite a few people of the Zhenhua Empire had followed Feng Wu here, and some of them had become Feng Wu's loyal fans. Therefore, they had bet on Feng Wu winning. However, when Feng Wu really chose the horse, they almost went crazy. No way. This isn't happening. I can't believe this. Has Miss Feng lost her mind? She can't even win with a normal horse, but she chose the worst one. That's just. She's given up already. So, should we still bet on Feng Wu? No, absolutely not. I definitely won't. Luckily, before the horse was picked, they were still allowed to make changes to their bets. I'll change it. I'll change it now. I'll put my bet on Sapphiro. Feng Wu is too willful this time. I'm disappointed. She's betrayed us all. Forget it. Let's change sides now. Feng Wu had no idea that the others were abandoning her because of her choice. Had she known, she might not know whether to laugh or cry. Are you sure this is the horse you want? Sapphiro found Feng Wu's choice insane. Are you sure? Are you really sure? Feng Wu chuckled. Of course I'm sure. I'll take it. The others all deemed her an idiot. Sapphiro shook her head repeatedly. No, it won't be a fair race. You know me. I'm a reasonable person. So I'll find you a nice horse. But Feng Wu shook her head. No, I must have this one. I don't want anything else. And the crowd was speechless. Chapter 1662, A Bet. Chapter 1662, A Bet. No, I only want this horse. Feng Wu pointed at the scrawny horse and spoke with a smile. Everyone began to give Feng Wu strange looks. She had to be out of her mind. How was that horse ever going to win against Sapphiro's? Sapphiro was about to say something when Feng Wu waved her hand and gave her verdict. Don't bother. I've made up my mind. Sapphiro smirked. Since you're going to lose for sure, I won't stop you. That bet still counts when you lose. When Sapphiro and Feng Wu were choosing the horses, word of their race spread. Everyone heard about it. Apart from how Jun Wuxia and Zhuoqingyu were spreading the news, the others were mainly interested in the bet. If Feng Wu lost, she would give up on Jun Linyuan. That condition alone was enough to fill everyone with expectation over this bet. Even Emperor Wu heard about it. Emperor Wu and Chieftain Sinal were chatting over tea with their vassals sitting around them. They had pretty much exhausted all the topics they could talk about when the news arrived. That's nonsense. What do they think they're doing? Chieftain Sinal immediately rose to his feet. Sapphiro is being reckless again. Emperor Wu was a little glad to hear the news. He had never liked the idea of Feng Wu being together with Jun Linyuan. If he could use this chance to have Feng Wu leave Jun Linyuan, this wouldn't be too bad an idea. Hence, he stopped Chieftain Sinal immediately. The girls are just messing with each other. Let them be. Let's go back to what we were talking about. Chieftain Sinal was only pretending to try to stop his daughter. Since Emperor Wu said so, he sat back down. In the Empress Dowager's tent. What? Feng Wu really said that? Ever since Feng Wu helped her make a breakthrough last time, the Empress Dowager had been having complicated feelings toward Feng Wu. She couldn't bring herself to talk to Feng Wu, so she just avoided her in embarrassment. Did that girl really say that? If she loses, she'll stop liking Junjun? The Empress Dowager wouldn't believe it, so she asked Granny Lan again. Granny Lan smiled wryly. According to the news, yes. The Empress Dowager said. Is that girl crazy? She's not as capable as Sapphiro. Granny Lan nodded. The Empress Dowager said. And she can't match Sapphiro in horse riding either. That girl practically grew up on horseback. Granny Lan nodded again. The Empress Dowager asked. Is that girl crazy? Where does she get the confidence that she can win? Granny Lan smiled wryly. That's what makes me wonder as well. The Empress Dowager grunted. This Feng Wu is so annoying. Granny Lan looked at her in bewilderment. Why? The Empress Dowager snorted. Who does she think my Junjun is? She can't make a bet on him just like that. Granny Lan said. But Your Majesty, I thought you didn't like her around His Royal Highness, so shouldn't you want her to lose? No, that's not it. The Empress Dowager said angrily. Only my Junjun can decide who he wants. She can't say no to Junjun. This is unacceptable. Granny Lan was speechless. The Empress Dowager said. I'm so mad. Granny Lan asked. So Your Majesty, do you want Miss Feng Wu to win or lose? The Empress Dowager was lost for words. Chapter 1663, A Young Master. Chapter 1663, A Young Master. In fact, the Empress Dowager didn't know why she was so angry either. She just was. She was very mad. Granny Lan could only smile bitterly. Emperor Wu and the Empress Dowager weren't the only ones who were paying attention to what was about to happen. Empress Dugu had been discussing it with the other noble ladies as well. Because the stakes were simply too striking. Meanwhile, the race was about to begin. Sapphiro's horse was an impressive one. It was strong, had sharp eyes and glossy hair, and was unparalleled on the grassland. It was almost as good as the chieftain's own horse. Thus, everyone looked at Feng Wu when they saw the horse. Feng Wu brought out her horse as well. The contrast wasn't too striking when the two horses were apart, but now that they were put together, the difference was simply too glaring. Lightbolt, you don't need to run too fast. 30% of your normal speed will be enough. Sapphiro rubbed her horse's head. Lightbolt had the intelligence of an 8-year-old, so it could understand Sapphiro. It glanced at Feng Wu's horse contemptuously and raised its chin proudly, as if its opponent was some unworthy farm horse. Feng Wu's thin horse even had a wounded right front hoof, but it completely ignored its opponent's attitude. You're such a mild-tempered little horse. Feng Wu patted its head and was amused. Horse racing was all about attitude. And Feng Wu's horse had already lost in that aspect. I'll call you Little Master from now on. How about that? Little Master couldn't be bothered to roll its eyes. It glanced at Feng Wu, lay back down and yawned. It yawned. Right now. Feng Wu didn't know what to say. The crowd, on the other hand, was speechless. They were completely baffled by Feng Wu's choice. She had to have lost her mind to compete against Sapphiro with this scrawny, lame, and lazy horse. Sapphiro didn't find the race very fair like this either, so she frowned at Feng Wu. How about you change your horse? Feng Wu said confidently, don't worry. My little master can definitely win. Sapphiro rolled her eyes and found her words to be nothing but hot air. If you can use this lazy horse to win against my Lightbolt, I'll give you all my wealth. Sapphiro found Feng Wu's claim outrageous. Feng Wu glanced at her. You mean it? Sapphiro patted her chest. Every word. Feng Wu said, good, write it down. Hence it was added to the contract. The Sino grassland believed in God Allah, whereas the Junhua Empire believed in the god of martial arts. Therefore, by burning the contract in front of both gods, no one was allowed to break their promise. Let's begin. Whoosh! Sapphiro's light bolt dashed off like a bolt of lightning as soon as it heard the whistle. But Feng Wu's little master. Well, Feng Wu hadn't even climbed onto the horse yet. Hey, you've been lying there for a while already. Can you get up now? Feng Wu kicked the horse in the butt. The horse replied with a yawn. Feng Wu didn't know what to say. Chapter 1664, Feng Wu the Despised. Chapter 1664, Feng Wu the Despised. Ha ha ha. The crowd burst into laughter. They laughed at what they were seeing. I told you. There's no way that Feng Wu can win this. Look at that horse Feng Wu chose. Does she know what she's doing? That's such a lazy horse. Lightbolt is so far ahead already, but Feng Wu's little master is still lying there. That name really suits it. Look, it's rolling its eyes at us. Does it think that we're too loud? I've never seen such a lazy horse before. Feng Wu's so going to lose. She doesn't stand a chance at all. Everyone was so sure that Feng Wu was going to lose. Whereas Feng Wu herself, she crouched down, crossed her arms, and looked at her little master in resignation. So, what will it take to make you stand up? Little master didn't respond. Feng Wu said, how about I give you 30% of the prize after I defeat Sapphiro? The horse remained unperturbed. Feng Wu said, 50% tops. Take it or leave it. Little master rolled its eyes and ignored her. Feng Wu rubbed her forehead. You're such a greedy little thing. Even 50% can't persuade you, huh? Feng Wu didn't keep her voice down when she talked to little master, so everyone there could hear what she said. They looked at her in utter bewilderment. Had she lost her mind? She was talking to the lazy horse about sharing the prize. Did she think that this horse could understand her? No, did she think that she could actually win with this horse? She was out of her mind. Everyone deemed Feng Wu crazy. What was going on here was constantly being reported to all the big bosses. Chieftain Sino almost cracked up when he heard the news. Oh God. Since when was his disappointing Sapphiro so lovely? It would be like slapping the Junhua Empire in the face. Emperor Wu was dumbfounded by the news. Seriously? Feng Wu had always made him proud. But why would she do such a stupid thing? He sat there baffled and didn't know how to react. All the officials there realized what had happened. They wanted to say something to ease the embarrassment, but it wasn't easy at all. Master Duga frowned. What does Feng Wu think she's doing? Is she trying to humiliate Sapphiro by choosing a bad horse? Feng Yanfeng frowned as well, but his first reaction was to put the blame on someone else. Feng Wu is unreasonable like that. She's always behaved that way. Unruly, conceited, and arrogant. I never could control her, so I removed her from my clan a while ago. From now on, no matter what trouble she makes, it doesn't concern my clan. Master Zhou glanced at Feng Yanfeng. That was quick. If Feng Yanfeng had reacted any slower, Master Zhou would have blamed it on him. However, Master Zhou still said, Master Feng, is that true? Why did I hear that Feng Wu is still listed as a member of your clan? Feng Yanfeng smiled wryly. We've been traveling, so it hasn't been easy to carry out the necessary procedure. After we return to the imperial capital, I'll make sure that her name is removed. Chieftain Sino frowned. Even if Feng Wu loses the competition, surely it doesn't have to come to that. Feng Yanfeng shook his head. That girl is too good at making trouble. My clan has been incriminated by her over and over again. If we don't get rid of her, my clansmen won't live in peace. So please don't try to tell me otherwise. The look on Emperor Wu's face kept changing, and no one knew what he was thinking. Chapter 1665, A Different Empress Dowager. Chapter 1665, A Different Empress Dowager. Feng Wu had no idea that her competition with Sapphiro had gotten everyone excited. While Sapphiro's light bolt had dashed off, Feng Wu's little master was still swaying its tail back and forth on the ground. Other people were anxious for Feng Wu, but Feng Wu herself didn't know what to do either. She sat down on the ground and looked at the horse in resignation. She then poked it in the head with a finger. Hey, aren't you spoiled? You actually can sleep at such a critical time? The horse opened its sleepy eyes with much difficulty. It glanced at Feng Wu, before putting its chin back on the ground and going back to its nap. Feng Wu didn't know what to say. If the crowd had had a little expectation of Feng Wu at first, they were now completely full of despair. What should we do now? Lady Northern Feng asked anxiously. Is she really going to lose? Qiling stood right next to Lady Northern Feng. Having been with Feng Wu all these years, she knew Feng Wu better than anyone else, which was why she was still smiling. My lady, please don't worry. Miss Wu will win. Everyone had come out now. and Lady Northern Foam was with the Empress Dowager, who also heard what Qiuling said. There were many noble ladies nearby, including Empress Dugu. Mrs. Zhua said sarcastically, "Whose maid is that? What an arrogant statement." "My lady, I'm Qiuling, Miss Wu's maid." Other people would have been intimidated by Mrs. Zhua's tone, but Feng Wu's maid wasn't just anybody. Qiuling remained unperturbed when all eyes were on her. She then bowed to the Empress Dowager. The Empress Dowager frowned at her. "Are you so confident that your mistress can win?" Qiuling smiled. "Your Majesty, my mistress has never lost." Mrs. Zhua suddenly chuckled. "She hasn't? Then how did she lose her cultivation ability and end up hiding in the border town?" Qiuling's eyes flickered. Mrs. Zhua knew perfectly well why Feng Wu lost her ability and ended up in northern border city, didn't she? Qiuling was filled with hatred, but she remained very calm when she replied with a smile. "Mrs. Zhua, may I ask who my mistress lost to?" Mrs. Zhua was about to say that Feng Wu had been defeated by her daughter, Zhua Qingwan. Her cultivation ability was destroyed, her master was taken away, and her future husband was stolen from her. However, Mrs. Zhua was then reminded of the current situation. Feng Wu had regained her ability and was making rapid progress. His Royal Highness was treating her differently and protecting her. So did Feng Wu really lose? Mrs. Zhua suddenly wasn't so confident anymore. She glared at Qiuling. "Even your mistress doesn't dare to talk like that in front of us. How dare you behave so arrogantly? Do you have any respect for Her Majesty the Empress Dowager and Empress Dugu at all?" She then gave the order, "Take this girl out and kill her." Since the Empress Dowager and Empress Dugu didn't like Feng Wu, Mrs. Zhua tried to punish her maid to curry favor with the two women. Lady Northern Foam was about to speak, but someone else spoke first. "Mrs. Zhua, I see that you're making decisions for me now." The Empress Dowager's cold voice came from the seat behind Mrs. Zhua. Chapter 1666 Little Master. Chapter 1666 Little Master. "Mrs. Zhua, are you making decisions for me now?" The Empress Dowager glanced at her and spoke slowly. Mrs. Zhua could behave as arrogantly as she wanted in front of Feng Wu, but she was nothing compared with the Empress Dowager. Therefore, she immediately dropped to her knees and said timidly, "Your Majesty, I didn't mean that. I really didn't." The Empress Dowager snorted. Mrs. Zhua prostrated on the ground and didn't dare utter another word. The Empress Dowager then slowly looked from Mrs. Zhua to Qiuling. "Do you really think that your mistress will win?" The Empress Dowager smirked. Qiuling smiled, her bright eyes twinkling. "Your Majesty, my mistress has never lost." "What if she loses then?" The Empress Dowager snorted. Qiuling looked confused. The Empress Dowager asked, "Do you want to make a bet with me?" Everyone was amazed by those words. Seriously? The Empress Dowager wanted to bet against a maid? That didn't seem to fit her status at all. What power did this young maid have to make the Empress Dowager want to do that? Even Empress Dugu studied Qiuling and pondered, not to mention Mrs. Zhua. "Well," Qiuling scratched her head with a wry smile. "Well, Your Majesty, I don't have anything that I can bet with." The Empress Dowager waved her hand. "Use yourself then." Qiuling looked confused. "So did everyone else." The Empress Dowager said, "If your mistress loses, you'll work for me. If she wins, I'll give her permission to stay close to me." Qiuling asked, "Your Majesty, do you mean that?" The Empress Dowager snorted. "I always keep my word." "What? Are you afraid?" Qiuling nodded. "All right. I'll take that bet." Mrs. Dugu laughed. "Qiuling, you better think it through. Your mistress's horse is still sleeping on the ground." Immediately, all the other noble ladies laughed. Mrs. Zhua chuckled. "Dear sister-in-law, haven't you realized it? If someone can work for Her Majesty, why would they want to stay with Feng Wu? Qiuling can't wait to see Feng Wu lose. Am I right, Qiuling?" Immediately, everyone else laughed loudly. Qiuling was so angry and wanted to lash out, but since her mistress wasn't here, she had to control her temper. "My mistress is going to win, and you'll all regret this." Qiuling rested her hands on her waist. Mrs. Zwa said. Right, with her horse that hasn't gotten up yet, I'm sure she'll win. Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. Feng Wu, the one who was being laughed at, was watching the horse she chose in resignation. Hey, are you really not going? Little Master ignored her. Get up now, or I'm really going to be angry. Feng Wu rose to her feet and rested her hands on her waist. Little Master flipped its tail. Feng Wu heaved a long sigh. 55%. How about I give you 55%? What's that look on your face? 55% is the most I can give you. Don't tell me you want 60%. Chapter 1667, No Surprise. Chapter 1667, No Surprise. Little Master glanced at Feng Wu and snorted. Its eyes seemed to be telling her, without me, you won't even have 10%, let alone 40%. Feng Wu stomped her foot in frustration. You're doing this because the race doesn't allow me to change horses, aren't you? You sneaky horse. You're unbelievable. Little Master flipped its tail again. Meanwhile, the crowd all gave Feng Wu strange looks. Had this person lost her mind? Everyone knew that the horse was bound to lose, so why was she discussing with the horse how to split the reward? But Feng Wu didn't care what these people thought, because Little Phoenix had told her confidently that this horse was amazing. It was more than just amazing. It was the only Bloodsea horse left on the continent. Once it picked up speed, it was swifter than the wind. Only a handful of beasts could catch up with it, not to mention humans. Feng Wu silently vented her sarcasm. Why is this Little Master so difficult? Little Phoenix rolled his eyes. A legendary horse comes with a temper. Of course it won't be that easy to tame. Feng Wu gave it some thought and agreed. I'll give you 70%. She stared at the horse. The horse snorted. Feng Wu said, Hey, I'm willing to give you 70%. Is that not enough? The horse turned its head. Feng Wu said, 80% then. Hey, be considerate. If you won't accept it, forget it. Neither of us will get anything. The horse reluctantly agreed to the 20 to 80 ratio. It slowly stood up, yawned, then set off. Hey, I'm not on your back yet. Feng Wu leapt up and swiftly landed on the horse's back. The horse moved very fast, and Feng Wu had almost missed it. At the last moment, Feng Wu put one foot through the stirrup to keep herself on the horse. That was a very dangerous move. Before everyone else realized it, the horse had disappeared out of sight. It ran so fast that it left an afterimage in the air. The crowd was astonished. It's so fast. Gosh, is that real? Isn't it a sick horse? Why is it so fast? It looked like it was flying. Saphiro is a long way off already. Feng Wu won't be able to catch up with her. Will she? I don't think so. If they had been very confident that Saphiro was going to win at first, they didn't feel so sure anymore when they saw how fast the horse could run. The Empress Dowager and the other ladies weren't very far away, so they soon heard about it. Mrs. Dugu and Mrs. Zwa looked at each other and frowned. Every time they thought that Feng Wu was finished, she would make a comeback to surprise them. How annoying. However, Princess Saphiro started out a long time ago, and Feng Wu only just set off. She can't catch up with the princess. Mrs. Zwa shook her head. Mrs. Dugu nodded. The result won't be a surprise. Feng Wu is definitely going to lose. Lady Northern Feng frowned and sounded displeased when she asked, Mrs. Zwa, are you a member of the Junwu Empire? Chapter 1668 Face Slapping, Round 1-1. Chapter 1668. Face Slapping, Round 1-1. Lady Northern Feng frowned and sounded displeased when she asked, Mrs. Zwa, are you a member of the Junwu Empire? Mrs. Zwa nodded. Of course I am. Lady Northern Feng snorted. If that's the case, why do you want Princess Saphiro of the Sino Grassland to win? Mrs. Zwa, that can be considered treason. Surprised, Mrs. Zwa immediately retorted, My lady, you're framing me. She then dropped to her knees. Your Majesty, I. However, before Mrs. Zwa could go on, the Empress Dowager cut her off with a wave of her hand. There's no need to say more. I know what you meant. What? Mrs. Zwa was baffled. What did the Empress Dowager know? Did she believe her or not? Feng Wu had no idea that so many people were talking about her behind her back. To her, the most important thing right now was to catch up with Sapphiro. After closing the 20-80 deal, the Bloodsea horse immediately picked up speed. Whoosh! Feng Wu saw the trees on both sides quickly fall behind like afterimages, the scene changing so rapidly that it made her dizzy. Several times, she was almost swept off the horse by tree branches. Luckily, she reacted quickly to avoid them every single time. Somewhere ahead of Feng Wu, Sapphiro rode the horse at ease with a satisfied smile on her face. She had never considered the possibility of losing from the very beginning. One could even say that she had never considered Feng Wu a worthy opponent. Sapphiro looked behind her when she was up on a hill, and she almost laughed. Gosh, how long has it been since I started already? Feng Wu's horse still isn't moving. Sapphiro giggled and threw her head back. She patted Lightbolt and said, "This is so hilarious. I'm almost halfway through when she hasn't even started. Feng Wu, you're definitely going to lose." Thinking about the final outcome made Sapphiro want to laugh. Once she won, Feng Wu would never be allowed to like Jun Linyuan again. She should have used the time to reach the endpoint, but she was too pleased with herself that she forgot what she should be doing. Seeing that Feng Wu's horse was still lying on the ground, Sapphiro let her guard down. Instead of speeding up, she slowed down to a stroll. Lightbolt was tired from running, so it walked unhurriedly, flicking its tail. Sitting on the back of the horse, Sapphiro chatted with Lightbolt in boredom. "Lightbolt, we won this time not because we're too awesome. Our opponent is just too weak. That's why you can't be proud of yourself, okay? Because it's not very likely that we'll ever run into such a stupid opponent again." "What? You're hungry? Well, our opponent hasn't started yet, so we have all the time in the world. Come, let's go relax in a cool place. We'll set out again after the hottest time of day is over. The sun may burn my fair skin." Sapphiro did just that. She found a big tree with lush foliage and tied Lightbolt to it. The next second, she leaned back against the trunk, found a comfortable position, and took a nap. She was in the habit of taking an afternoon nap. If she didn't, she feared that it would affect her impeccable skin. Chapter 1669 Face Slapping, Round 1-2. Chapter 1669. Face Slapping, Round 1-2. Sapphiro was dozing off when she heard the sound of hoofs. She tapped Lightbolt's hoof. "Stop running. You're too loud." All of a sudden, she bolted up in astonishment. This wasn't right. Lightbolt's reins were tied to the tree. Why was there the sound of a galloping horse? Turning around, Sapphiro saw that Lightbolt was indeed standing in place. However, it had turned in the direction they had come with an alarmed look in its eyes. Even the horse felt that something was off. She suddenly grew uneasy and jumped up. Just like Lightbolt, she looked in the same direction. Clip-clop, clip-clop. The sound grew closer and closer. And it was almost here. A horse flashed through the trees, and Sapphiro couldn't see who it was through all the branches. That horse. Sapphiro's heart sank. No, it couldn't be. That horse ran like a bolt of lightning. No, it was even faster than Lightbolt. There was no way that it was Feng Wu's lazy horse. Sapphiro patted her own head in resignation. She assumed it was an impressive horse which lived in the woods and had just decided to show itself. She chided herself for being so suspicious, thinking that it could be Feng Wu's horse. However, before she could feel relieved, the smile froze on her face. That was because she finally saw the horse. Even if she couldn't recognize the horse, she had to recognize Feng Wu, whom she had been having a hard time dealing with. "It's you." When Sapphiro saw Feng Wu holding the reins on the back of the horse, she almost forgot to breathe. How could this happen? How was this even possible? How could it be her? "You." Sapphiro pointed at Feng Wu and was utterly shocked. Feng Wu rode the horse as fast as a gust of wind and swiftly ran past Sapphiro. She didn't even look at her the entire time. Sapphiro was so furious that she thought she was going to lose her mind. She would rather that Feng Wu laugh at her or mock her than ignore her. Because that was humiliation of the greatest level. Running behind Fengwu, Sapphiro yelled angrily, "Fengwu! Stop! Stop right now!" Fengwu simply ignored her and rode away like a gust of wind. Sapphiro was speechless. Enraged, she didn't know what to say. Nay! Next to her, Lightbolt neighed. Only then did Sapphiro come back to herself. She had a horse as well. Without thinking, Sapphiro jumped onto the horse and struck it hard with her whip. "Lightbolt, quickly! Catch up with it!" Lightbolt had an aggressive look in its eyes. It would catch up with the other horse, even if its master didn't give the order. It had never been humiliated like this before. Clip-clop, clip-clop. Sapphiro had chosen Lightbolt as her horse for a reason. When it picked up speed, it was indeed as fast as a streak of lightning. One would have a hard time following it with their eyes. Sapphiro was almost thrown off the horse. She gripped the reins and looked nervously ahead of her with contracted pupils. Fengwu's horse had already turned into a small black dot. Chapter 1670 Face Slapping, Round 1-3. Chapter 1670, Face Slapping, Round 1-3. Run! Run faster! Frustrated and infuriated, Sapphiro gripped the reins and kept urging Lightbolt. Faster! Faster! Why are you so slow? Lightbolt was so angry that it wanted to give up. Who did she just call slow? In fact, it had never run this fast before. Lightbolt exhaled impatiently. Sapphiro snapped, "Stop whining. If you lose, I'll skin you and turn you into horse meat stew." Anger and afraid, Lightbolt picked up speed again. With the sudden burst of energy, the distance between the two horses grew shorter and shorter. 1,000 meters, 800 meters, 500 meters. Sapphiro was finally appeased. But she was still frustrated. This Fengwu really is a piece of work. Her horse is amazing, but she just had to pretend that it was useless. She fooled me. She then caught up with me and ran past me. What a schemer. Sapphiro clenched her fists and went scarlet in the face. No, I can't lose. I absolutely can't. I can lose to anyone but Fengwu. I would rather die than lose to someone as scheming as Fengwu. Lightbolt! Faster! Catch up with her! Lightbolt ran like there was no tomorrow. Because of its sudden burst of energy, Lightbolt's face twisted. It looked like its blood was boiling. Waving her whip, Sapphiro yelled, "Faster! Faster! We only have 100 meters left. You'll soon catch up with her. Run!" Lightbolt picked up speed again. Its blood capillaries burst and blood oozed out, painting it red. When Sapphiro touched the horse and saw the blood on her hand, she was shocked. How did Lightbolt? However, seeing that Fengwu was right ahead of her, Sapphiro struck the horse with her whip again. Faster! Lightbolt was already reaching its limit. When the whip hit it, it flinched and nearly tripped. Luckily, it soon steadied itself and kept running. Sapphiro always kept her word. The horse knew that if it didn't win, she really would skin it and turn it into a stew. All the noise made Fengwu look over her shoulder curiously, and what she saw made her frown. "Sapphiro, you're pushing too hard. Your horse is exhausted and you're still forcing it to speed up?" Seeing how casual Fengwu and her horse were, Sapphiro was furious. She snorted and said, "It's none of your business." Fengwu shrugged. "Fine. I won't meddle then. I'll just win." Sapphiro said, "You." Fengwu waved at her. "Come. Follow me." Lightbolt was so exhausted that it was on the verge of collapsing. The endpoint was still an hour away, and Sapphiro knew very well that Lightbolt wouldn't make it. What should she do? Sapphiro racked her brain for a solution. Fengwu rode casually. Right now she and Sapphiro were almost neck to neck. Chapter 1671 Face Slapping, Round 2-1. Chapter 1671, Face Slapping, Round 2-1. However, Fengwu's horse was full of energy and had no trouble maintaining its speed. Sapphiro's Lightbolt, on the other hand, was bleeding and pushing its limits. One horse was full of energy, while the other one was almost exhausted. It didn't take a genius to predict what was going to happen. "Do you think you're going to win?" In your dreams. Seeing how unhurried Feng Wu was, Sapphiro was furious. She threw a dirty look at Feng Wu. Feng Wu only shrugged at her. The more unperturbed she was, the angrier Sapphiro got. She thought she was definitely going to win at first, and she had been so much faster than Feng Wu. This competition should never have been an issue. Yet, despite all the should-haves, it was Feng Wu who was winning. How did this even happen? Sapphiro was filled with rage and frustration. Suddenly, something flickered in her eyes. She then leapt up and pounced at Feng Wu from behind in a frantic manner. Meanwhile, something glinted between her fingers. It was a secret blade. Die! Sapphiro bellowed. Throwing her right arm around Feng Wu's neck, she dragged the blade across it. She was going to kill Feng Wu and take her horse. Feng Wu was now a level 3 spiritual elder, and 1 level below Sapphiro, which was quite a huge difference. Therefore, Feng Wu in fact wasn't as capable as Sapphiro. Moreover, Sapphiro had attacked her unexpectedly. Feng Wu had anticipated Sapphiro's attack, but she hadn't known that Sapphiro knew assassination techniques. And she was an expert at it. That was why Sapphiro had surprised her by grabbing her neck. However, Feng Wu was known for her ability to resolve a crisis. The moment Sapphiro threw her arm around her neck, Feng Wu kicked the side of the horse and used the force to leap up. Meanwhile, she grabbed Sapphiro's fist with her right hand. At that critical moment, Feng Wu used all her strength. SSSS. No one could recognize vital points as accurately as Feng Wu. When she pressed a spot between Sapphiro's thumb and index finger, Sapphiro felt her right wrist go numb, and she couldn't use that hand. Feng Wu's throat was right at her fingertips, but she didn't have the strength to cut it with the blade. This might be Sapphiro's best chance to kill Feng Wu in her entire life. When two capable people fought each other, the tiniest error could make a huge difference. Sapphiro shouldn't have given Feng Wu a chance, because Feng Wu would be able to strike back and turn things around. Just like now. In the brief moment when Sapphiro's hand went numb, thud, Feng Wu grabbed her wrist and threw her over her shoulder. That wasn't important. The more important thing was that when Feng Wu did that, she used the blade hidden between Sapphiro's fingers to slide it across Sapphiro's neck. Thud, the glinting blade cut Sapphiro's throat. It was a thin blade, but the cut was very deep. After Feng Wu did that, she turned swiftly and moved away from Sapphiro. Feeling frustrated that she hadn't gotten the chance to kill Feng Wu, Sapphiro yelled angrily, "Feng Wu, you!" Chapter 1672 Face Slapping, Round 2-2. Chapter 1672. Face Slapping, Round 2-2. However, as soon as she spoke, Sapphiro realized that something was wrong. She felt a cool sensation on her neck, and it began to hurt. She touched it, and felt something sticky on her fingers. She then smelled blood. When she saw her hand, she almost fainted. Blood, blood, blood. There's so much blood. Sapphiro went pale. She stared at Feng Wu with an astonished look in her eyes. You. She only felt the wound on her throat when she saw the blood. The fear of losing her life then overwhelmed her. It hurt. Sapphiro wanted to say something, but she then realized that she couldn't speak. She felt the cut on her throat, and her difficulty in breathing made her shake from head to toe. Clapping her hands, Feng Wu stood up and looked down at Sapphiro with a smile. Very impressive assassination skills. Sapphiro had almost gotten her. Sapphiro covered her throat, but the blood kept oozing out, and she couldn't stop it. Soon the blood turned green. As time went by, the green turned darker until it was an inky green color. Sapphiro panicked and fumbled in her sleeves and pockets for something. But she just couldn't find it in her panic-stricken state. Antidote, where's my antidote? Her blade was covered with poison, and judging from how panicked she was, it had to be a lethal one. Sapphiro was so nervous that she threw everything in her sleeves and pockets onto the ground. There was a mirror, a makeup box, a comb, and a bunch of other bits and bobs. With a wave of Sapphiro's hand, she pushed everything aside. Soon, she found a porcelain bottle the size of a finger. When Sapphiro saw the small bottle, she jumped at it as if seeing her savior. However, Feng Wu had almost been killed by Sapphiro just then, so of course she wouldn't let that happen. With a wave of her sword, the small bottle flew through the air and rolled down the slope. You! Sapphiro stared at Feng Wu with hatred, as if she wanted to pierce Feng Wu with her bloodshot eyes. But Feng Wu only patted her hands clean and smiled casually. No matter how hard Sapphiro stared at Feng Wu, there was nothing she could do. She had to run after the bottle first. After all, the most important thing was to stay alive. The bottle rolled down the slope, at the end of which was a cliff. There was no time for Sapphiro to get it by foot, so she jumped off the horse and rolled down the slope. When she finally caught the bottle, half of her body was over the cliff. That was close. There was no time to open the bottle, so she crushed it and poured the white powder on the wound on her throat. Cough cough. Because she was in such a hurry, Sapphiro took a deep breath and choked on the powder. She coughed so hard that she thought she was going to cough her lungs out. Phew! Sapphiro was finally relieved after using the antidote. Chapter 1673. Chapter 1673. Face Slapping, Round 2-3. When Sapphiro stumbled up the slope, she looked up and saw that Feng Wu was still there. She was so furious that she almost collapsed. She glared at Feng Wu and said, "I'm going to kill you. I will. I swear it." However, Feng Wu only smiled. "Kill me? Are you sure?" Sapphiro smirked. "I'm going to kill you." Feng Wu shrugged. "If that's what you want." Just then Sapphiro smirked. "Feng Wu, you shouldn't be so arrogant. If I were you, I would have run away by now." Feng Wu narrowed her eyes. "Is that so?" Just then, she heard footsteps in the quiet woods. They were as nimble as cats when they jumped from one tree to another. One could hardly hear them. But Feng Wu wasn't just anyone. She had sharp hearing, and her other senses were even more acute. She detected the danger immediately. "I see. An ambush." Feng Wu smiled a little and stared at Sapphiro. "That's why you're so confident." Sapphiro smirked. "Feng Wu, you've just made a very big mistake." She was so pleased that she wanted to laugh, but she couldn't because of the wound on her throat. Instead, she snorted. "If you had killed me right away, I would never have had the chance to send the signal to summon them here. Because of your carelessness, I sent a distress signal when I rolled down the hill just then, and you didn't know a thing. You're so naive. You gave me the chance. I didn't plan to use it, but my oldest brother says that you're full of schemes, so it's better to be prepared. Feng Wu, I didn't expect you to force me to go to this extent. Go to hell. Ha ha ha." Sapphiro was so pleased that she laughed loudly despite the wound on her neck. Her oldest brother? Feng Wu narrowed her eyes. She hadn't made a move against the man, but he wanted to kill her first. Frowning, Feng Wu looked around and felt alarmed. Whoosh! Suddenly, a glinting blade was thrown at Feng Wu through the thick leaves. It was as thin as the wing of a cicada, and shone coldly in the sunlight. Whoosh! 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 Dozens of blades soon followed. They were so powerful. They blocked her way from all sides and she couldn't escape. Ding! With a wave of her hand, Feng Wu drew out her Fallen Star sword and raised it to her chest. The second stance of Fallen Star swordplay, Dancing Dragon in the Moonlight. As Feng Wu named her stance, she moved together with her sword. Just like the name suggested, the sword looked as if it was dancing in moonlight, leaving behind afterimages. All Sapphiro could see were afterimages, and she couldn't see what was going on. And clinks were all she could hear. These are the secret guards trained by my oldest brother, and they're all amazing soldiers. Feng Wu is doomed. Sapphiro smiled as she applied an ointment on her wound. It was thanks to her scheming brother, who had come up with this plan. Otherwise, she would have been killed by Feng Wu. However, when the mist dissipated and everything was clear again, Sapphiro was shocked by what she saw. Chapter 1674 Face Slapping, Round 2-4. Chapter 1674. Face Slapping, Round 2-4. How is that possible? Sapphiro stared at the scene with a look of disbelief in her eyes. She saw, Feng Wu was standing proudly in the center of the battlefield. She raised her chin and looked as proud as ever as she stood there. The lower hem of her dress flapped in the wind, making her look like a goddess. When the sun shone on her, it looked like she had gathered together all the spiritual essence of the world. She was almost too resplendent to look at. There was no trace of blood on her, but 5 people had dropped to the ground in front of her. They were dressed from head to toe in black. They had black head coverings, black masks, and black clothes. Even the skin that wasn't covered had been painted black. They were the secret guards of the oldest prince of the Sino grassland, but right now, they had all dropped dead, each with a blade between their eyebrows. Sapphiro had fought these men before. When the 5 guards attacked together, Sapphiro wasn't their match. She was forced to surrender every time, but these 5 were killed right after the fight started. How was that even possible? Feng Wu was a level below her. Sapphiro stared at Feng Wu. But Feng Wu paid no attention to her. Instead, she looked in the direction of an old tree. "Come out," she said coldly. As soon as Feng Wu said that, a man in black walked out from behind the thick tree. There was a cold look in his eyes, and he gave off an energy that seemed strong enough to kill a person. Feng Wu narrowed her eyes and kept her unblinking gaze on the man. The man stared at Feng Wu as well. "I underestimated you." He reached behind his back and slowly drew out a black sword. Black smoke which resembled a black snake coiled around the sword. The murderous intent was so intimidating. Feng Wu could sense the energy coming off that black sword. Sapphiro looked from the man to Feng Wu, and she smirked. So her brother had sent 7 here. 7 was much more capable than Sapphiro, who wasn't far off from Feng Wu in cultivation level. That was to say, 7 was far above Feng Wu. Feng Wu would not survive the day. When 7 drew out his sword, Sapphiro stepped back. Whoosh! 7 made his move. There was a flash of black light, and a circle with a 10-meter radius centered around 7, and Feng Wu appeared on the ground. Feng Wu saw that the circle was like a cage as a black wall trapped her, and the man inside. Feng Wu kept stepping back until her back hit the black wall. Cold murderous energy ran down her spine. It felt like a slithering black snake. How terrifying. Feng Wu immediately moved away from the wall, to get away from the energy. However, she was more alarmed than ever. This man built this black wall with a single sweep of his sword. Exactly how capable was he? Seeing Feng Wu avoid the wall, Sapphiro smirked. "Feng Wu, you might be a genius and were able to defeat me, who's a level higher than you. But what about 7? He's a lot stronger than you. So just die." Chapter 1675 Face Slapping, Round 3-1. Chapter 1675, Face Slapping, Round 3-1. "Feng Wu, you should just die." There was a malicious look in Sapphiro's eyes. It was indeed as Sapphiro said. Right now, Feng Wu was facing the biggest crisis of her life. The man was so much more capable than she was. And he was going to kill her. "Are you going to do it, or do I have to do it for you?" 7 frowned and gave Feng Wu a contemptuous look. He looked at Feng Wu, as if he was just watching a spider climb onto a branch. Feng Wu smiled a little. "What if I don't want to choose? Then I'll choose for you." 7 raised the black sword and swung it through the air. The strike actually cut through the air, and seemed to stir the air currents. Feng Wu didn't know what to say. He's very powerful. Little Phoenix had never sounded so alarmed. Feng Wu nodded. "You won't be able to fend him off." Little Phoenix sounded anxious. Feng Wu nodded again. "Right now we have no choice but to flee," said Little Phoenix. "Flee?" Feng Wu smiled bitterly. How was she going to do that? Just then, 7 struck again with his black sword. Immediately, a ferocious roar ripped through the air, and the sword charged at Feng Wu like a black rainbow. It was such a terrifying power. Holding her fallen star sword, Feng Wu yelled, "The first stance of fallen star swordplay, sword of the other world." Immediately, there was a shower of falling blades. It then turned into a red rainbow which blocked the black sword. Thump! There was the sound of a loud collision. After they crashed into each other, the black rainbow began to devour the red one at a tremendous speed. "Shit!" Feng Wu narrowed her eyes and her stomach lurched. In a matter of seconds, her red rainbow was devoured. It was so fast. Without thinking, Feng Wu raised her sword and performed the second strike, Dancing Dragon in the Moonlight. The second stance made Feng Wu invincible among her peers. However, when she performed Dancing Dragon in the Moonlight with her fallen star sword, there was a loud thump. The black rainbow smashed into it again. The first strike had indeed weakened the black rainbow's momentum, but it was so minimal that it was negligible. The black rainbow was thus able to crash into the Dancing Dragon before the stance was fully activated. Thump! The energy from the impact filled the air. Thump, thump, thump. Dancing Dragon in the Moonlight was devoured as Feng Wu watched. When the stance was interrupted, there was a backlash on Feng Wu. Without a shield to block the impact, Feng Wu took the hit full on. Thump! She flew backward and smashed into the black wall behind her. The impact was so terrifying. Feng Wu was only human. There was no way that she could withstand such power. Wretch! Feng Wu felt her blood boil when she smashed into the wall, and blood poured out of her mouth. At that moment, Feng Wu felt as if she had been thrown into a meat grinder. The pain made her vision go dark, and she almost fainted. It hurt a lot. Feng Wu took a deep breath and forced the blood down her throat. But it didn't end there. When she hit the wall, the deadly black mist took advantage of her weakness and quickly seeped into her body. Chapter 1676, Face Slapping, Round 3-2. Chapter 1676, Face Slapping, Round 3-2. After the deadly mist entered her body, it turned into a strange energy and infiltrated her energy channels. It hurt a lot. Feng Wu fought back the pain and forced herself to stand up. Seeing that Feng Wu had almost passed out after one strike from 7, Sapphiro couldn't contain the smile on her face. She murmured, "Feng Wu, I'd like to see you survive this." She then gave 7 the order. 7, kill her. 7 nodded. He didn't have to follow Sapphiro's order, but it happened to coincide with the order of the oldest prince. The prince's own words were that Feng Wu could live if Sapphiro won. If Feng Wu won, she had to die. 7 understood what the prince meant. If Feng Wu lost, it meant that she was only mediocre and a nobody. The prince wouldn't be bothered by a common girl. However, if Feng Wu could defeat Sapphiro despite being at a disadvantage, it meant that she was an extraordinary person. Since she didn't pledge loyalty to the prince, there was no need for her to live. At that thought, 7 held his black sword tighter. Kill her now before she causes more trouble. She's too smart. Anything can happen. Sapphiro yelled at 7. 7 stared at Feng Wu. Without another word, he marched toward her, holding the black sword. In a few seconds he was in front of Feng Wu. Die! 7 raised his sword and struck down at Feng Wu. Feng Wu had put her hand on the wall, and her fingers flinched at that moment. The moment the sword struck down, she teleported to the other side of the circle. Thump! 7 didn't expect Feng Wu to have such a skill, and his sword smashed into the black wall. It made a tiny crack in the hard wall. However, as Feng Wu watched, the crack closed up, as if it had never been there at all. What a shame! Sapphiro had thought that the strike would cut Feng Wu in half, but to her disappointment, Feng Wu successfully dodged it. But what difference does it make? Right now, you're like a turtle trapped in a vase. It's only a matter of time before you're dead. Sapphiro smirked. Ha! I'd like to see how many more times you can do that. She stared at Feng Wu. Meanwhile, 7's eyes glinted. She had dodged his lethal attack. Very impressive. The prince was right. 7 had to kill her to avoid future complications. Die! 7 ran after Feng Wu with the sword. With her injuries, Feng Wu couldn't move very fast, so 7 soon caught up with her. When 7 raised his black sword, the energy seemed to dim the sky. Die! The black sword struck down at Feng Wu's back. Feng Wu has to die now, right? Sapphiro was full of expectation. But she was disappointed again. Because Feng Wu teleported again, back to her earlier spot. 7 missed his target again. Sapphiro was speechless. Chapter 1677 Face Slapping, Round 3-3. Chapter 1677, Face Slapping, Round 3-3. Seven didn't know what to say. Interesting. The indifferent look on Seven's face changed. After Feng Wu evaded him twice, he became more serious. He and Sapphiro had thought that Feng Wu would be able to teleport once or twice at most. But to their surprise, she did it 6 times in a row. 6 times? How is that possible? Sapphiro was confused. Seven felt equally perplexed. As a matter of fact, Feng Wu didn't use to have such an ability, but when she searched her ring space, she realized with pleasant surprise that she had something valuable in it. Which was an unlimited teleportation card. Of course, it wasn't really unlimited. There was a maximum time of use. It was unlimited until the spiritual essence ran out. Teleportation was an escape skill, and every time she used it, she used a lot of spiritual essence. A regular person wouldn't be able to stand up after one teleportation, and Feng Wu was only able to do it 6 times because of her ring space. And she was almost drained after that. Feng Wu didn't have this card before, so where did it come from? Feng Wu was well aware that it was from Cat9's cache. She had been too busy following Cat9 then, and hadn't had the time to check everything. As it turned out, it contained an object that could save her life. The card was a treasure, but it was a one-off item. After she evaded being attacked 6 times, she saw the look on Seven's face change. Sapphiro also had a solemn look on her face. Seven, kill her now. Sapphiro didn't want any more complications, so she shouted at Seven. She's very sneaky. Don't let her escape. Seven snorted. Escape? Was Sapphiro blind? He had activated his deadly black wall. People couldn't just escape from it. Seeing that Feng Wu was leaning on the black wall, panting and letting the black mist enter her body, he smiled maliciously. One last time. He raised his sword. Feng Wu panted and leaned weakly on the wall. Her legs were shaking from exhaustion. Would she be able to get away from him? Seven was confident that Feng Wu was going to die this time. His black sword moved as fast as a streak of lightning. The energy of the sword filled the space in the wall. Die! Seven bellowed. The sword energy fused into the black wall, creating a terrifying light. The light then turned into countless dots that resembled tens of thousands of broken shards, which flew at Feng Wu. If Feng Wu was hit, she would be pierced 1,000 times. At that critical moment, break! Feng Wu uttered the spell. As the dots of light converged on her, she teleported one last time. She leapt out of the wall, and in the next second, she was on the back of the Bloodsea horse. The horse was very intelligent. It was usually proud and lazy, but in a critical moment like this, it was very obedient. Feng Wu didn't need to spur it before it bolted like a cannonball. Rumble! The sound of an explosion filled the space inside the black wall. Seven had used all his strength. After making the strike, he couldn't stop it. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.